A very good evening, everyone. I again welcome you all to the next session, and I'm very much thankful to for your kind patience showing to us. Now, I request you please pay your kind attention now because we are going to have very important session now. The session is on thoughts of quantum physics and consciousness. So I would call Professor T.K. Bandopadhyay for the chairing this session. Professor Bandopadhyay, please come on stage. Dr. Bandopadhyay has completed PhD in Metallurgical and Materials Engineering from IIT Kharagpur. He has been presently working as a assistant professor at IIT Kharagpur. He worked with Indian Patent Office and NTPC Limited before joining IIT Kharagpur. He has published more than 22 papers in referred journals. He has 2 Indian patents. He has authored a book on intellectual property right. His research areas of interest include technology, law, interface, policy, and physical metallurgy of steel, etc. I would also like to take this opportunity to call the speakers of this session. Swami Sambi Somgiri ji, please join us on stage. Sri Gautam Paul ji from Indian Statistical Institute, Kolkata. Sri Rajat Kumar Pradhan ji from Bhadrak Autonomous Science College, Odisha. And Sri Girish M and Nikhil Samanji, please come and join us on stage. Now I would like to hand over the stage to Professor Bandopadhyay, please.
Thank you, Vijit. It is my great privilege to chair a sessions where I am just like a grandsons of the first speakers, and also it is also the others also. Specifically the area that thought in quantum physics and consciousness. Just like say in respect of specifically, I consider the knowledge, we consider knowledge is difficult to measure. Just like say consciousness, just also whatever we consider that incomplete and inconsistent. So considering that aspect, let's call first Sambit Somgiri sir. It is difficult to introduce such a personality, but let's introduce in brief about him. His education is B Mechanical Engineering from MBM Engineering College, Jodhpur in 1966. Worked as a lecturer at MBM Engineering College, University of Jodhpur, Faculty of Engineering, Jodhpur till 1971. Received Diksha of Paramhansa Sannyas from most revered Gurudev Swami Ishwarananda Giriji Maharaj in May 1971. So he accomplished honors with Swami Sri Vishwanandan spiritual honor by Swami Sri Shiv Shakti Educational Institute in October 2005. I just will give a brief about that. He organized conducting Gita competition for the last 22 years. Also, we should know about his other achievement, just like say, he set up a homeopathic dispensary to offer free services to the set up a library hall of 30 feet into 60 feet size to public use for their spiritual study. There are mainly 2,000 books available in that library. He also organized tree plantation program, promoted and encouraged afforestation for conservation and environment for planting about 2,000 plants and different species in and around the temple thereby. Transforming the barren land into the mini forest area. He has a series of publications, so it is difficult to give his achievement and all sorts of things in very short times. And I request sirs to deliver your valuable speech to the audience. Audience is waiting for your valuable speech.
यो ब्रह्माणं विदधाति पूर्वं यो वै वेदांश्च प्रहिणोति तस्मै तं हदेवमात्मबुद्धिप्रकाशम् मुमुक्षुर्वै शरणमहं प्रपद्ये। ॐ शान्तिः शान्तिः शान्तिः। निधये सर्वविद्यानां भिषजे भवरोगिणां गुरवे सर्वलोकानां दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। अज्ञानतिमिरान्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। आगम प्रणवपीठिकाम् अमलवर्णमङ्गलस्वरूपिणी आगमावयवशोभिनी अखिलवेदसारकृतशेखरी मूलमन्त्रमुखमण्डला मुदितनादबिन्दुनवयौवना मातृकां त्रिपुरसुन्दरीं मनसि भावयामि परदेवताम्। या देवी सर्वभूतेषु मातृरूपेण संस्थिता नमस्तस्यै 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 नमो नमः। नमो विराट स्वरूपिण्ये नमः सूत्रात्ममूर्तये नमो व्याकृतरूपिण्ये नमः श्री ब्रह्ममूर्तये नमः श्री ब्रह्ममूर्तये। ओम तत्सत् परब्रह्मणे नमः। आज के इस अत्यंत ही महनीय मंगलमय पावन प्रेरणास्पद अवसर पर माँ भारती के चरणों में कोटिशः वंदन करता हूँ। युगों युगों से प्रवाहित सृष्टि के मूल से स्पंदित चैतन्य मूलक आनंद मूलक ओंकार मूलक आत्ममूलक इस पावन संस्कृति की पुलकित गोद में इस कोलकाता नगरी में विराजित आनंद स्वरूपिणी भगवती काली के चरणों में कोटिशः वंदन करता हूँ। युगों से प्रवाहित इसकी पावन चेतना, यह मंदाकिनी, यह अलकनंदा, यह भागीरथी, ये जाह्नवी, ये गंगा, यह हुबली, ये सागर गामिनी, यह जिस भाव में भरी हुई है, मिली मिली सागर से मिलती चली जा रही है। प्रत्येक लहरी में हिमगिरी से निकलकर आने का एक विरह है तो सागर से मिलने का एक आनंद प्रकट हो रहा है। उस चेतना के प्रति वंदन करता हूँ। यहाँ पर जितने महापुरुष हुए जिन्होंने सृष्टि के मूल को प्रकट किया, भारत की रत्नभरा प्रज्ञा को प्रकट किया, पराभक्ति को प्रकट किया, ऐसे चैतन्य महाप्रभु रामकृष्ण परमहंस, आनंदमयी माता और न जाने कितने संत बावनों के गीत, उनकी उस प्रीति के प्रति, भक्ति के प्रति, प्रज्ञा के प्रति कोटिशः वंदन करता हूँ। और वंदन करता हूँ नरेन के प्रति, विवेकानंद के प्रति, सुभाष के प्रति और रविंद्र के प्रति, जिन्होंने सारी जगती में माँ भारती का नाम उज्ज्वल किया। आज इस भाव में यह सभा मंडप उमड़ घुमड़ रहा है, उसके प्रति मैं वंदन करता हूँ। और अति मधुर बांग्ला भाषा के प्रति वंदन करता हूँ और इसके जननी संस्कृति के प्रति वंदन करता हूँ। बंधुओं, ओंकार अनाद से सारे स्वर प्रकट हुए, सारे व्यंजन प्रकट हुए, सारे मंत्र प्रकट हुए, सारे ब्रह्मांड में वेद के मंत्र ध्वनित हो रहे हैं, स्पंदित हो रहे हैं। मैं उनके प्रति वंदन करता हूँ। आप सब यहाँ पर समुपस्थित हैं जिन्होंने इस प्रज्ञा सभा का आयोजन किया है। मैं भगवान स्वरूप महाप्रभु के चरणों में, जिन्होंने भक्ति वेदांत का यह अद्भुत सारस्वत स्रोत प्रवाहित किया, उनके प्रति वंदन। आप सबके प्रति जो अनंत के पथ पर यहाँ पर पधारे, उस तरुणाई के प्रति वंदन करता हूँ। मातृ शब्द मदर बन गया, भ्रातृ शब्द ब्रदर बन गया, पितृ शब्द फादर बन गया, ऐसे ही रित शब्द है रिदम बन गया। सारा ब्रह्मांड एक रिदम में नाच रहा है। इलेक्ट्रॉन्स, प्रोटॉन्स, न्यूट्रॉन्स, सब पार्टिकल्स, बोसॉन्स, समुद्र उछलता है तो एक रिदम में, वर्षा होती है तो एक रिदम में, दामिनी दमकती है तो एक रिदम में, बादल गरजते हैं तो एक रिदम में, भ्रमर गुंजार करता है एक रिदम में, कोयल कुहकती है तो रिदम में, शेर गरजता है एक रिदम में। सारा ब्रह्मांड एक रिदम में नृत्य कर रहा है। मनुष्य आउट ऑफ रिदम है। वह रिदम में कैसे आए, इसके लिए हमारे पास में एक जीवन दर्शन है। हम उस जीवन दर्शन को समझना चाहते हैं। हमारे यह कॉन्फ्रेंस अपूर्णता की तरफ जा रही है। अनेक ऋतंभरा प्रज्ञा से जिनका चेतन झिलमिला रहा था, ऐसे अनेक विद्वानों ने यहाँ पर हमारे सामने अपने विचार रखे, अपनी अनुभूतियों को हमारे समक्ष रखा। उनके प्रति वंदन है। हम कहीं पर पहुँचना चाहते हैं। मैंने आपके सामने बताया था कि ऑब्जर्व द शीनेस विद कंट्रोल्ड एंड कल्चर्ड माइंड इन एवरी फॉर्म ऑफ लाइफ। मैं उसको रिपीट नहीं करूँगा। इन अ फिश, इन अ बर्ड, इन एवरी स्टेज ऑफ द लाइफ, when it is dreaming, when it is sleeping, when it is awake, when it is infant, when it grows, when it is meeting, when it is mating, when it is issuing forth, suckling the child, project into the cosmic screen and go beyond the Big Bang. You will be face to face with the primordial triangle of creation. रामकृष्ण परमहंस ने इसका दर्शन किया था और उन्होंने कहा था इसके बाद में मुझे सगुण साकार का दर्शन नहीं हुआ। यह मूल प्रकृति थी। यह मूल प्रकृति सत्वगुण, रजोगुण, तमोगुण, इच्छा शक्ति, ज्ञान शक्ति, क्रिया शक्ति, project the heinous on the cosmic screen. You will be face to face with the Purusha Vishesha, Ishwar Tattva. Project yourself on the cosmic screen. Self-touching the self is existence. Self-knowing the self is consciousness. Self-being the self is unlimited joy, the bliss. हम उसको प्राप्त करना चाहते हैं। आनंदादेव खलु इमानि भूतानि जायन्ते, आनंदेन जातानि जीवन्ति, आनंदम प्रयन्ति अभिसंविशन्ति. The material cause and the efficient cause of this entire cosmos is Ananda Tattva and Prapanchopshamam Shantam Shivam Advaitam Chaturtham Manyante Sa Atma Sa Vigneya. This is the highest motivation. इसको हमको समझना है। हमारा एक पारमार्थिक दर्शन, एक व्यावहारिक दर्शन है। हम क्षण क्षण की प्यालियों में शताब्दियों को घूंट घूंट कर पीने वाले लोग हैं। हम सहस्राब्दियों में मनवंतरों के अंदर चहल कदमी करने वाले लोग हैं। समय में बंधने वाले लोग नहीं हैं। महाकाल की उंगली को थाम करके हम मृत्यु को जीत लेते हैं, मृत्यु के पार चले जाते हैं। अमृतस्य पुत्रः। और मुझे उद्धृत करना चाहूँगा इस अल्प समय में, वन विजन आई कैन सी क्लियर एज लाइफ बिफोर मी, दैट द एंशिएंट मदर हैज अवेकन्ड वंस मोर, सिटिंग ऑन हर थ्रोन, rejuvenated, more glorious than ever. Proclaim her to the entire world with a voice of peace and benediction. और मुझे इस कॉन्फ्रेंस के बाद में यह पता लगता है कि ये युवा यहाँ पर आए हैं, इन्होंने वेदांत को सुना है, इन्होंने क्वांटम फिजिक्स के बारे में सुना है, इन्होंने एक संकल्प लिया है कि हम भारत में ऐसा नाम रोशन करते हैं। माँ भारती का नोबेल प्राइज उसके सामने कुछ नहीं है। एक जगदीश चंद्र बोस हुए थे, सत्येंद्र नाथ बोस हुए, न जाने कितने बोस यहाँ पर होंगे, कितने यहाँ पर वैज्ञानिक होंगे, सृष्टि को दिशा देंगे, सारे जगत को दिशा देंगे। इसलिए हमारा दर्शन स्पष्ट होना चाहिए। इसलिए बंधुओं, मैंने आपके सामने कहा था, मुझे किसी ने टोक दिया, आपने कहा था भगवत गीता में बिग बैंग का उल्लेख है। अर्जुन ने प्रश्न पूछा, किन तत् ब्रह्म, किम अध्यात्मम किम कर्म पुरुषोत्तम। सारे प्रश्नों का भगवान उत्तर देते हैं। अब यहाँ पर जो रेलेवेंस मैं जिसको बताना चाहूँगा आपके समक्ष में, भगवान अर्जुन के प्रश्नों का उत्तर देते हुए कहते हैं, भूत भावोद्भव करो विसर्ग कर्म संगीत है। यह इतना गहरा श्लोक है, इतना महनीय श्लोक है। हमको इस श्लोक की गहराई में जाना है, इसकी आत्मा का स्पर्श करना है, भगवान श्री कृष्ण के तात्पर्य को समझना है। यह ईश्वर के स्तर पर, कॉस्मिक कॉन्शियसनेस के स्तर पर लागू होता है, जीवन मुक्त महापुरुष के जीवन में लागू होता है, सत्कर्म करने वाले प्रत्येक व्यक्ति के ऊपर यह श्लोक लागू होता है। इसलिए मैं गीता के उन श्लोकों का उद्धरण करना चाहूँगा। जब भगवान कहते हैं ममयोनिर महद ब्रह्म तस्मिन् गर्भम ददाम्यहम संभव सर्वभूतानां ततो भवति भारत, सर्वयोनिषु कौन्तेय मूर्तया संभवन्ति याः तासां ब्रह्म महद्योनि अहम बीज प्रदः पिता। My primordial nature, known as the Mahat Brahma, is the womb of all creatures. In the womb I place the seed of all life. The creation of all beings flows from the union of the matter and spirit, O Arjuna. Of all embodied beings that appear in all the species of the various kinds, Arjuna, Prakriti is the conceiving mother, while I am the seed-giving father. आ माने अनुत्तर, आ माने आनंद, ई माने इच्छा, ई माने ईक्षण, उ माने उन्मेष, उ माने ऊनता, सारे स्वर, और अंतिम स्वर क्या है? विसर्ग है। जो ही गर्भाधान किया जाता है, जो ही वह परमेश्वर अपनी शक्ति में द प्राइमोर्डियल ऑब्जेक्टिविटी, यूनिफाइड कॉन्शियसनेस, अपने अंदर से प्राइमोर्डियल ऑब्जेक्टिविटी और उसके अंदर गर्भाधान करता है। इधर भी प्रेम का एक सागर, उधर भी प्रेम का एक सागर, इसलिए वहाँ पर माया नहीं कहा, वहाँ पर महद ब्रह्म कहा, और उसमें वह गर्भाधान करता है। और रति क्रिया की निष्पत्ति पर विष्णु प्रिया के कंठ से आनंद के अतिरेक की अनुभूति से अह अह का शब्द निकलता है। सारा ब्रह्मांड एक अह अह है, एक आनंद का उच्छलन है, एक अट्टहास है। इट इज़ नॉट ए बिग बैंग, इट इज़ ए बिग सॉन्ग। आनंद का उच्छलन, आनंद का प्रकटन है, और वह हर प्राणी में अनुभव में आता है। इसको आप लोग समझने का प्रयास करेंगे। इसलिए सृष्टि का प्रारंभ क्यों हुआ, कैसे हुआ, क्या विवशता थी? सृष्टि है ही नहीं, अजातवाद, पर मुझे सृष्टि दिखाई देती है। इसलिए उसके बाद में बताया कर्म का सिद्धांत। इसलिए हम समझना चाहते हैं सृष्टि हुई कैसे। एको हम बहुश्याम, मैं एक हूँ बहुत हो जाऊँ, उसने संकल्प किया, उसकी इच्छा थी। आप स्नान घर में जाते हैं, निवृत्त होते हैं, स्नान करते हैं और गाने लगते हैं, बाहर आने पर पूछते हैं कोई आपने क्यों गाया? मेरी इच्छा। जब एक साधारण व्यक्ति में यह स्वातंत्र है तो वह तो महद ब्रह्म है, उसमें कैसा स्वातंत्र होगा? वह अपनी इच्छा है, वह अपने आप को प्रकट करता है। पर उसकी लीला कहने से हमारा प्रश्न का उत्तर नहीं मिलता है। हम कहते हैं सृष्टि है ही नहीं, अजातवाद, उसकी लीला कहने से भी हमारा समाधान नहीं होता है। इसलिए हमको और नीचे उतरना पड़ता है। जब तक कर्म के सिद्धांत को नहीं समझेंगे, अथा तो ब्रह्म जिज्ञासा जन्माद्यस्यत शास्त्र योनित्वात् तत्व समन्वयात्, ब्रह्म सूत्र में आया तो आता है वैषम्य नैर्घिण्य। भगवान में विषमता है, भगवान में निष्ठुरता है, क्रूरता है, पार्शियलिटी है। मैं युवाओं से कहना चाहूँगा कि प्रश्न पूछें, उस तथाकथित भगवान से पूछें। मैं बाबूलाल से कहना चाहूँगा इस प्रश्न को उठाएं। उन्होंने उठाया वैचारिकी के अंदर, पर इसका समाधान भी आपको देना चाहिए। ऐसे हॉकिंस जैसे कितने भी वैज्ञानिक आ जाएं, क्या हमारे महापुरुषों की अनुभूति को टाल सकते हैं? क्या अपौरुषेय वेद ने जो बताया उसको टाल सकते हैं? क्या भगवत गीता में जिस बात को बताया उसको मना कर सकते हैं? इसलिए हमको समझना होगा कि सृष्टि का क्रम कैसे प्रारंभ हुआ। हम जब बात करते हैं तीन गुणों की, तो मैं हम क्वांटम फिजिक्स या अब तक ग्रेविटेशनल फोर्स, इलेक्ट्रोमैग्नेटिक फोर्स, वीक न्यूक्लियर फोर्स, स्ट्रॉन्ग न्यूक्लियर फोर्स, और ऑर्गेनिज्म जहाँ पर आता है वात पित्त और कफ, तो सत्वगुण रजोगुण तमोगुण पर इसकी पूरी मीमांसा भगवत गीता में और हमारे भागवत महापुराण में इसको दिया गया। अन्य पुराणों में भी इसका वर्णन है। इसलिए उसको समझना सृष्टि का एक क्रम है। इक्विलिब्रियम में होते हैं जब सत्वगुण रजोगुण तमोगुण परम शांत अवस्था होती है। महाप्रलय में कुछ नहीं होता है, वहाँ पर वह शक्ति शक्तिमान के साथ में एकाकार होकर रहती है। उसने संकल्प किया एको हम बहुश्याम, उसकी इच्छा थी मैं बहुत हो जाऊँ, और वह बहुत हो गया। जो ही इक्विलिब्रियम डिस्टर्ब होता है गर्भाधान किया जाता है, और गर्भाधान करते ही इक्विलिब्रियम डिस्टर्ब होता है और माया स्पंदित होने लगती है। सत्वगुण रजोगुण विशुद्ध सत्व में ईश्वर तत्व प्रकट होता है और मलिन सत्व में प्राज्ञ जीव प्रकट होता है। सृष्टि आगे बढ़ती है, सूक्ष्म तन्मात्राएं प्रकट होती हैं। मैं वासुदेव जी को बहुत बहुत धन्यवाद देना चाहता हूं, जिन्होंने प्रारंभ में वेदांत के बारे में बहुत कुछ बता दिया और सुदीप्त जी ने बहुत कुछ बता दिया। 5 प्रकार के फोर्स फील्ड्स हैं, एनर्जीज हैं, अलग अलग कुछ नहीं है। एक प्रकार के 5 तन्मात्राएं, शब्द, स्पर्श, रूप, रस, गंध, ये 5 तन्मात्राओं की एक स्थिति होती है। सृजन आगे बढ़ता है। इसलिए भगवत गीता में कहा मेरी एक अपरा प्रकृति है, वो त्रिगुणात्मिका है। मेरी एक परा प्रकृति है, वो जीव भूता है, चैतन्य रूपा है। वो परमेट करती है अपरा प्रकृति के अंदर, सृष्टि के कण कण में, वो चाहे कितना भी सूक्ष्म से सूक्ष्म कण क्यों ना हो या चाहे वो वेव क्यों ना हो, उसके अंदर निरंतर एक परा प्रकृति रहती है जो चैतन्य रूपा है, चिति रूपा है। इसलिए सृष्टि आगे बढ़ती है। 5 तन्मात्राएं प्रकट होती हैं। 5 तन्मात्राएं तमोगुण की प्रधानता होती है। तीनों गुण हमेशा साथ में रहते हैं, अलग कभी नहीं हो सकते। और इन 5 तन्मात्राओं के अंदर से फिर सूक्ष्म सृष्टि प्रकट होती है। आपको मैंने चार्ट दिया, उसको आप देख लीजिएगा, उसके विवरण में मैं अभी जा नहीं सकता। इसलिए 5 तन्मात्राएं, उसमें सत्वांश से लेकर के 5 ज्ञानेंद्रियां बनती हैं और हमारी श्रवण की इंद्री, हमारी स्पर्श की इंद्री, हमारी नेत्र की इंद्री और हमारी रसना इंद्री, रसनेन्द्री और हमारी घ्राणेन्द्री, ये हमको जो दिखाई देते हैं गोलक हैं। ये उसका फोकल पॉइंट है जहाँ से वो फोर्स काम करता है। मैं युवाओं से कहना चाहूँगा, मोबाइल आपके पास में है, अलग अलग मोबाइल, एक सर्वर के द्वारा सारे मोबाइल कंट्रोल होते हैं। इसलिए चिड़िया में भी नेत्र इंद्री है, मछली में भी नेत्र इंद्री है, मनुष्य में भी नेत्र इंद्रिय है। जहाँ कहीं नेत्र इंद्रिय है उसको कंट्रोल करने वाला एक देव होता है और उसी को अधिदेव कहते हैं। सूर्य उसका अधिदेव है और सारी नेत्र इंद्रियों को कंट्रोल करता है। वैसे ही सारी ज्ञानेंद्रियों को कंट्रोल करने वाले कॉस्मिक डिवाइन फोर्सेज हैं। इसलिए सृष्टि आगे बढ़ती है, पंचीकरण होता है। 5 प्रकार के फोर्स व्हील्स आपस में इंटरेक्ट करते हैं और वो प्रक्रिया क्या है, इसको पंचीकरण की प्रक्रिया करते हैं और सारा एक स्थूल ब्रह्मांड प्रकट हो जाता है और इसमें 14 भुवन प्रकट होते हैं। उसमें हम मर्त्यलोक में हैं। और मैं साधुवाद देना चाहूँगा उन महात्माओं को, उन मनुष्यों को जिन्होंने हमारे सामने रख दिया ये जीवन कितना बहुमूल्य है। क्या कर्म के सिद्धांत को आप लोग जानते हैं? मैंने यूनिफाइड फोर्स फील्ड की आपके सामने बात की थी। सारे फोर्स फील्ड को आप जितना भी पता लगा लें, किसी भी विज्ञान की शाखा के द्वारा, ग्रेविटेशनल, इलेक्ट्रोमैग्नेटिक फोर्स, न्यूक्लियर फोर्स, बायो फोर्स, मेंटल फोर्स, साइकिक फोर्स, सारे फोर्स फील्ड को जोड़ करके रखने वाला एक फोर्स फील्ड है। और विज्ञान की सारी शाखाएं आज धीरे धीरे फुसफुसा रही हैं। इट मस्ट बी द फोर्स फील्ड ऑफ द कर्मा अबाउट विच द हिंदूज टॉक। धर्मो विश्व से जगता प्रतिष्ठा, ये जो रित है इसी को धर्म कहते हैं। ये रिदम बन गया है। इसलिए सारे ब्रह्मांड को धारण करने वाला ये नंदीश्वर है, ये सिंह है, ये गरुड़ है, जो सारा वह चेतना इसमें स्पंदित होती हुई जाती है। इसलिए मैं आपके सामने निवेदन करना चाहूँगा किस प्रकार से यह स्थूल जगत है निरंतर स्पंदित हो रहा है और यह एक इन्यूमरेबल इकोसिस्टम्स, ऑल इंटरकनेक्टेड, इंटरडिपेंडेंट, इंटररिलेटेड, ये भगवत गीता के 3रे अध्याय में इसका वर्णन किया गया है। इतना अद्भुत श्लोक है। आप चाहे हिग्स बोसोन ले लीजिए, आप चाहे हिग्स फील्ड ले लीजिए, चाहे आप एक अमीबा ले लीजिए, चाहे एक सेल ले लीजिए, चाहे एक परिवार, एक व्यक्ति ले लीजिए, एक वन ले लीजिए, चाहे गैलेक्सीज को ले लीजिए, सर्वत्र एक यज्ञ चक्र चल रहा है, विष्णु चक्र चल रहा है, विष्णु का यज्ञ चक्र 3रे अध्याय में इसका वर्णन है और सारा ब्रह्मांड उसको वर्तन करता है। इट फॉलोज द कॉस्मिक ऑर्डर, कॉस्मिक लॉ। उसका बढ़ना, जन्म लेना, अस्तित्व में आना, बढ़ना, परिवर्तित होना, क्षीण होना और अव्यक्त के अंदर चले जाना, लीन हो जाना। 8वें अध्याय में इस बात का वर्णन है। 2 प्रकार के अव्यक्त होते हैं, आपका ब्लैक मैटर, ब्लैक होल, सबका उत्तर ये आपको 8वां अध्याय बता देगा। इसने बताया एक ऐसा अव्यक्त है जो निर्मल है, जो ज्योतिर्मय है, वो एक जैसा रहता है। उस त्रिगुणात्मक का अव्यक्त है, उसमें सारी सृष्टि लीन होती है, सारी सृष्टि प्रकट हो जाती है। आपको जो चार्ट दिया है उसमें मैंने बताया। अभी हम प्रतिदिन जब संकल्प करते हैं पूजा का, वी गो बियॉन्ड द बिग बैंग और विष्णु 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 श्रीमद् भगवत महापुरुषस्य विष्णोराज्ञा प्रवर्तमानस्य अद्य श्री ब्रह्मण द्वितीय परार्धे श्वेत वाराह कल्पे वैवस्वत मन्वंतरे अष्टाविंशतितमे कलियुगे कलिप्रथम चरणे भारतवर्षे भरतखंडे आर्यावर्तांतर्ग देश के देशे। भाषा हमारी छीन ली गई है, इसलिए हमको मालूम नहीं हम किस प्रकार ट्रांसेंड करते हैं टाइम को, उसमें चहलकदमी करते हैं। इसलिए यह जो एक विराट आया उसमें सारे उसका वर्तन करते हैं। दे फॉलो द कॉस्मिक ऑर्डर। मनुष्य के अलावा मनुष्य को उसको समझना चाहिए। और बंधुओं, मैं आपको बता देना चाहता हूँ कि ये कोई समुद्र में कोई सेल प्रकट हुआ और फिर मेंढक बने, मछली बने और सांप बने और फिर बंदर बने, बंदर की पूंछ घिस गई और फिर आदमी बन गया। मानो कुछ बंदरों ने मना कर दिया हमको पूंछ घिसानी नहीं है। भगवत गीता कहते पहले मानसिक सृष्टि होती है। महर्षय सत्वपूर्वे चत्वारो मनवस्तथा मद्भावा मानसा जाता येषाम लोक इमा प्रजा। इस प्रकार से मैथुनी सृष्टि बाद में आती है। सारे प्राणी उसका वर्तन, उसके अंदर कंट्रोल, यहाँ तक कि देवता भी भोग योनि है। यह दुर्लभ मनुष्य की योनि, और उसमें भी भारत में जन्म लेना, और उसमें भी इस पवित्र स्थल में, मैं कहता हूँ पूरे भारत में सभी स्थान बहुत पवित्र हैं, तुलना नहीं की जानी। पर जहाँ पर जाह्नवी प्रवाहित होती है और जहाँ पर वो सागर से मिल रही होती है, वो जिस भाव के अंदर उपनीत है, जिस भाव में अभी सागर उन्नीत है, वहाँ की मिट्टी के कण में, वहाँ की वनस्पति में, वहाँ के प्राणियों में, वहाँ के अंदर जो मनुष्य रहते हैं, ये परम सौभाग्य की, परम पुण्य का परिपाक है। इसलिए ऐसा होता है। इसलिए उसको समझना चाहिए व्हाट इज द कॉस्मिक ऑर्डर। उसका खाना पीना, उठना बैठना, संतान प्राप्त करना सभी कॉस्मिक ऑर्डर के अनुसार होना चाहिए। इसलिए मैंने आपको कहा, मैंने ये उदाहरण दिया था भारतीय संस्कृति में, प्रोजेक्ट द शीनेस ऑन द कॉस्मिक स्क्रीन, तब आपको समझ में आएगा। यत्र नार्यस्तु पूज्यन्ते रमन्ते तत्र देवताः, यत्र साधुन पूज्यन्ते अफला सत्र सर्वा क्रिया। ये जो अभी सूक्ष्म कणों की उसमें लगे हुए रिसर्च में, वे वंदनीय हैं, वो तपस्वी हैं। ये भारत भूमि में क्यों नहीं हुआ था? मुझे बताया था आपके सुदीप जी ने, कितने ग्रंथालय जला दिए गए थे, कितना अत्याचार हुआ। क्यों हुआ था अत्याचार? केवल प्रारब्ध के कारण। नोट कर लीजिए, एक संचित कर्म होता है, एक प्रारब्ध कर्म होता है, एक क्रियमाण कर्म होता है। मधु जी से मैं कहूँगा, अगर विराजमान हो तो, मधुवाता ऋतायते मधु क्षरंति सिंधव मधु। इसलिए इस फोर्स फील्ड को समझना, संचित कर्म, एक प्रारब्ध कर्म और एक क्रियमाण कर्म, और हमको क्रियमाण कर्म को दीप्त करना है। ए फॉल्स एंड फिक्टिशियस नोशन ऑफ सेपरेटेडनेस, एक जीव भाव, एक भ्रांति है। We have to break it, but we can't break it. The very attempt to break it will increase this ग्रंथि, the Gordian knot. इसको कहते हैं मूल ग्रंथि। अपने आप को प्रकट करती है ब्रह्म ग्रंथि, विष्णु ग्रंथि, रुद्र ग्रंथि के अंदर। और ग्रंथि त्रय भग्न करने के लिए हमारे यहाँ पर पूरी संस्कृति, गर्भाधान वैसे ही किया जाता है जैसे ईश्वर ने अपनी शक्ति में गर्भाधान किया। क्या आपको समझ में आई ये बात को? जैसे ईश्वर ने अपनी शक्ति में गर्भाधान किया, वैसे ही भारतीय दंपति गर्भाधान करना चाहिए। वो मंत्र हमारे से छीन लिए गए हैं, पर हमारी लोक संस्कृति में आज भी वो विद्यमान है। उसको समझना, गर्भाधान से लेकर अंत्येष्टि तक एक अखंड साधना चलती है हमारी। कीप ऑन इवॉल्विंग कंटिन्यूअसली एंड बी वन विद दैट अल्टीमेट कॉन्सनेस, द यूनिफाइड कॉन्शियसनेस। दिस इज द अल्टीमेट गोल ऑफ द लाइफ। इसलिए समय पूरा हो गया, हमको ये प्रयास करना है। मैंने कहा कि मैंने कुछ लिख करके दिया है। हमारे ये वैज्ञानिक, उनकी ग्रॉस बॉडी इज द पार्ट एंड पार्सल ऑफ द कॉस्मिक ग्रॉस बॉडी, उनकी सटल बॉडी पार्ट एंड पार्सल ऑफ द कॉस्मिक सटल बॉडी, उनकी कॉजल बॉडी इज पार्ट एंड पार्सल ऑफ द कॉस्मिक कॉजल बॉडी अव्यक्त। एंड द शाइनिंग एंड शिमरिंग आईनेस इज नथिंग बट ए रिफ्लेक्शन of that cosmic Surya, Atma Surya, which is everywhere. If they become with the reverence and gratitude, if they peep and see the Higgs boson, it will start dancing, it will start speaking, it will give a fragrance. वो बोलेगा, वो बोल रहा है। मधु जी ने बहुत सुंदर इसका वर्णन किया था। दृष्टि को बदलने की बात है। दृष्टि को ठीक कीजिए ईश्वर के प्रति, ईश्वर के आधार में वो ब्रह्म तत्व, आत्म तत्व है। जगत के प्रति उसके आधार में वो ब्रह्म तत्व है, ईश्वर तत्व है। जीव के प्रति उसके आधार में ब्रह्म तत्व है, जीव भक्त है। बिना कर्म के हम इसको प्राप्त कर नहीं सकते। कर्म किए बिना एक क्षण भी हम लोग रह नहीं सकते। इसलिए हमको सर्वे कर्मे तब शक्ति ए जैने सार कर्म सकल कर्मे तो मोरी प्रचार। बंगला बोल तो नहीं सकता, उतला करके बोल रहा हूँ। रविंद्रनाथ टैगोर लिखते हैं गीतांजलि में, सर्वे कर्मे तब शक्ति ए जेने सार करब सकल कर्मे तोमरी प्रचार। सभी कर्मों में तुम्हारी शक्ति का वास है। यह सार तत्व जानकर मैं अपने सभी कर्मों में तुम्हें ही प्रकट करूँगा। निमित्त मात्रम भव सव्य साधन। ऐसे यदि वैज्ञानिक साहित्यकार हम सभी कर पाएंगे, वह पूर्णता यहाँ पर निश्चित रूप में अवतरित होगी। मैं पुनः आप सबके प्रति बहुत बहुत वंदन करता हूँ जिन्होंने यह सौभाग्य प्रदान किया। और मैंने आदरणीय विट्ठल जी से कह दिया था कि मैं अंग्रेजी की बजाय हिंदी में बोलूँगा। उन्होंने कहा आप माफ़ी मांग लेना सबसे। तो आई एम सो सॉरी दैट आई हैव स्पोकन इन हिंदी एंड पर्टिकुलरली व्हेन मधु जी स्पोक आई थॉट देन आई मस्ट स्पीक इन हिंदी ओनली। सो फ्लुएंट, सो मधुर, इतना अधूर आनंद आया किया। मैं पुनः इन महापुरुषों के प्रति, वैज्ञानिकों के प्रति और जिन्होंने इसका आयोजन किया है, उन सब के प्रति कोटि से वंदन करता हुआ अपनी वाणी को विराम देता हूँ। ओम।
Thank you, Swamiji. We are really grateful to you. We will now take few questions from audience, within maybe 2-3 questions.
Thank you, Swamiji, for enlightening us on wonderful journey of through cosmos and of the soul. So, at the end of your speech, you quoted Rabindranath, and he was addressing to some person. So, but he could not identify that person, although invariably in his inner conscience, he had that gut that it is the person he was addressing to. So he fell short, although in his gut he realized it is the person he is addressing to. Where he cannot be addressing to some energy or some abstract idea or some. He's addressing to some person, but he fell short there. My question is, would you like to extend your thought beyond him, or you are feeling restricted with him only?
I have the desires. I want to fulfill my desires. All the desires should be fulfilled. First, correct your drishti about everything. About sex, about love, about beauty, about she-ness, about he-ness, about God, about the jagat. Drishti theek karna. Then emotional purity. And then dexterity with equanimity. Ishtan bhogan hyo deva dasante yajna bhavitaha. जो जो आप चाहते हैं आपको यज्ञ की प्रक्रिया से मिलेगा. इसलिए इन द यजुर्वेदा देयर इज अ मंत्र, अणिमा चमे महिमा चमे यज्ञेन कल्पन्ताम, शीशम चमे लोहम चमे यज्ञेन कल्पन्ताम, सुपर कंप्यूटरम चमे यज्ञेन कल्पन्ताम, उपग्रहम चमे यज्ञेन कल्पन्ताम. यज्ञ की प्रक्रिया के द्वारा हमने यह सब कुछ प्राप्त किया था, पर उसका लिमिटेशन क्या था हमको मालूम था. इसलिए सबको ही संबोधित करता है. एक एडवांस स्टेज में आते हैं, निमित्त मात्रम भव सव्य साचिन. अर्जुन एक एडवांस स्टेज में था, परंतु दूसरे के लिए उसके ऊपर एक शास्त्र का शासन रहेगा, कॉस्मिक ऑर्डर का शासन रहेगा. उसके अनुसार उसके मनमाने ढंग से इच्छाओं को पूर्ण नहीं कर सकता. देव ऋण, ऋषि ऋण, पितृ ऋण, मनुष्य ऋण, भूत ऋण, जब तक ऋणों का विमोचन नहीं होगा उसका चित्त निर्मल नहीं बनेगा, उसके अंदर भक्ति प्रकट नहीं होगी. ज्ञान तो बहुत दूर की बात है.
Any questions from backside? Just middle row, one question.
First of all, huge respects to you, Swamiji. I know that our Vedas have huge content of knowledge, but every time I feel that why it is as we know that most of the concepts which were given in the physics, like black holes and multiverses and all these things, are there in our Vedas also, which were represented in some other way. But why is that we are able to recognize those concepts in our Vedas only once it was introduced from physics?
बहुत सुंदर प्रश्न किया है. आप अपने आप से प्रश्न कीजिए, आप अपनी संस्कृति के बारे में कितना जानते हैं? आप कौन से गोत्र में, कौन से ऋषि आपके गोत्र के मूल में हैं, कितना जानते हैं? हमारी अवधारणाएं ठीक नहीं है, उन अवधारणाओं को ठीक करें. यहाँ तक कि वेद के विषय में भी हमारी अवधारणाएं ठीक नहीं, और वेद का अति अल्प अंश आज हमको उपलब्ध है. वेद का भी अति अल्प अंश पर वो पर्याप्त है. और ये आपने उलाहन अच्छा दिया, एक और विद्वान ने भी उलाहना दिया था, ज्ञानाभास, भक्ति का आभास, धर्माभास, और हमको ले डूबेगा. इसलिए हमने इतने अंधेरे युग को पार किया है. पर अभी नरेंद्र जैसे, विवेकानंद जैसे उद्घोष किया है, ऐसे युवा जब सामने आ रहे हैं, ऐसे विद्वान यहाँ पर सामने आ रहे हैं, भविष्य उज्ज्वल है.
We can take one questions. If no questions, we are really thankful to Swamiji for enlightening us with force and work. Okay, one question.
क्या दो विभिन्न जगत और दो विभिन्न सत्ताओं की कल्पना की जा सकती है? दो अलग अलग ब्रह्म हो, दो अलग अलग वर्चुअल रियलिटी हो, जिस तरह दो कंप्यूटर से दो वर्चुअल रियलिटी का जिक्र किया गया, तो ब्रह्म का हम जिक्र क्यों नहीं कर सकते?
आपका प्रश्न है दो ब्रह्म क्यों नहीं हो सकते? क्या उनकी कल्पना नहीं की जाती? आपको मना कौन करता है? आप कल्पना कीजिए।
हो सकते हैं क्या इसके बारे में?
है नहीं, दो ब्रह्म नहीं है। द वेरी डेफिनेशन ऑफ कॉन्शियसनेस इज यह स्वतः सिद्ध स्वप्रकाश है एकमेवा द्वितीयम। द वेरी डेफिनेशन। इसलिए दृश्यत्वाद जड़ है, जो दृश्य है वो जड़ है और स्वप्रकाश है वह चैतन्य है और यह आनंद स्वरूप है। सजाति विजाति स्वगत भेद से रही, टाइम स्पेस एंड कॉजेशन उसके बियॉन्ड एकमेवा द्वितीय।
दो अलग चेतनता के क्षेत्र हो सकते हैं।
The very definition of the reflected consciousness, restricted consciousness, contained consciousness. We are talking of the pure consciousness, unlimited. Nitya Shuddha Buddha Mukta Swarupa, and Krishna is that. Bhashyakara says, Swam Vaishnavim Mayam Vashikritya Ajopisan, Swam Vaishnavim Mayam Vashikritya Nitya Shuddha Buddha Mukta Swarupi लीलाएं जन्म लेता हुआ सा प्रतीत होता है। हमारे इतना निकट वह परब्रह्म आया, गाया, सुनाया, सब कुछ बताया, कितने दृष्टांत बताई। जब रोने लगे रात के 12 बजे रोने लगे और माँ उठी तो कहा कि माँ, ऊपर हाथ किया, चंद्रमा ऊपर थे, चंद्रमा चाहिए, और माँ ने उसको बहुत बहलाया, माना नहीं। तो फिर माँ ने एक थाली में बर्तन पानी भर के रख दिया और ज्यों ही रिफ्लेक्शन पड़ा, ये रहा चंद्रमा, तुरंत उस ठोकर मार दी, पानी हिलने लगा कि कहाँ है चंद्रमा। फिर उसको उठाया, बहलाया, कुछ सुनाया गीत और फिर उसको बैठा दिया। फिर उसने अपनी थोड़ी मिट्टी उसमें डाल दी, तो फिर उसको लिया, खूब हाथ पैर दोनों को पकड़ लिया, पानी शांत हो गया, मिट्टी नीचे बैठ गई और चंद्रमा का उसमें प्रतिबिंब पड़ने लगा। आनंद का प्रतिबिंब हमारे अंदर पड़ नहीं रहा है। आई एग्जिस्ट एंड आई नो दैट आई एग्जिस्ट, बट आई एम प्योर आनंदा। वी आर नॉट एक्सपीरियंस, बट वेन एवर वी आर एब्सॉर्ब इन एनीथिंग, इन डांसिंग, इन प्लेइंग, in anything, in hugging the wife, in hugging the friend, and dancing, shooting, playing, everywhere, when you transcend your body, your senses, and no ulterior motive, no ego, then that ananda is experienced. Every day you must experience that ananda. तो आनंदा स्वार्थ रहित और निरहंकार होकर के जीने से आपको आनंद की अनुभूति। वी आर ऑल इमर्स इन एन ओशन ऑफ आनंदा. We are all immersed in an ocean of bliss, ocean of love, ocean of beauty, but we are not able to experience it. क्योंकि एक्सपीरियंस करने की इंद्रियां हैं, उनके अंदर दोष है, उनमें भी राग द्वेष है, चित्त में भी राग द्वेष है. कॉन्सेप्चुअल क्लैरिटी इज अटरली लैकिंग, इमोशनल प्योरिटी इज नॉट देयर, एंड डेक्स्ट्रिटी, जिसके लिए यहाँ पर आपके महात्माओं ने बताया था, हमको इसी जन्म के अंदर उस पूर्णता को प्राप्त करना है. निरंतर इवॉल्व होते चले जाने, हम कभी असफल होते ही नहीं. अगर हमारा दर्शन सही है तो हम निरंतर इवॉल्व होते चले जाते हैं. और हमको मालूम है प्रारब्ध एंड पुरुषार्थ, टू फोर्स व्हील्स आर साइमल्टेनियसली इंटरैक्टिंग. हम आदरपूर्वक प्रारब्ध को नमस्कार करते हैं, पर हमारा पौरुष का धर्म है, पर विनय से परिपूर्ण. क्या रावण से बढ़कर कोई बड़ा साइंटिस्ट और टेक्नोक्रेट हो सकता है? वेद का बड़ा उपासक था, वेद का ज्ञाता था, वेद वेदता था, और फिर शिव का तमोगुणी भक्त था, पर दृष्टि में दोष था. और ऐसा दुर्धर्ष राक्षस था, असुर था, जिसको मारने के लिए परब्रह्म राम के रूप में आए और उसका नाश उन्होंने किया था. इसलिए हमारी अवधारणा जगत के प्रति ठीक होनी चाहिए, हमारी अवधारणा ईश्वर के प्रति ठीक होनी चाहिए. ठीक नहीं है. वायलेट द कॉस्मिक ऑर्डर, देन एंड देयर विल बी पनिश्ड. मुझे बताया यहाँ पर विद्वान है, ऐसे हमारे पास में ऑरा मीटर बने हैं, ट्रिलियन फोटोग्राफी आ गई है. हमको युवाओं को जाकर बताना चाहिए कमरे में जा करके, और आप थोड़ा सा गलत काम करो, चाहे इंद्रियों के द्वारा करो, चाहे मन के द्वारा कुछ प्राणियों को लेकर मारो, उसी समय आपके प्रेम करने की शक्ति मलिन हो जाएगी, कम पड़ जाएगी. आपके अंदर इंट्यूशन की शक्ति कम पड़ जाएगी, आपकी एकाग्रता कम पड़ जाएगी, आपकी आंखों का तेज कम पड़ जाएगा, आपकी वाणी की प्रगल्भता कम हो जाएगी, आपकी मुस्कान नकली पड़ जाएगी, आपकी ललाट के ऊपर कालिमा आ जाएगी, आपकी चाल में फर्क पड़ जाएगा. उस कक्ष के अंदर, उन वस्त्रों के अंदर आपके ग्लैंड सिस्टम के अंदर, नर्वस सिस्टम के अंदर विकार आ जाएगा. उसी समय दंड मिलेगा, कालांतर में दंड मिलेगा. और घोर पाप क्या है तो मूढ़ योनियों फेंक लिए जाओगे. क्या आज हमारे विद्यालय में ये बताया जाता है? ब्रायन वीज यहाँ पर आएगा और आपको बताएगा कि पूर्व जन्म था, आगे का जन्म होगा. हम क्यों नहीं अपने बच्चों को इस बात को बता रहे हैं? कैसा एजुकेशन सिस्टम पर ला दिया गया है. इसलिए इस बात को हमको समझना पड़ेगा और आगे बढ़ना पड़ेगा।
Thank you. Madhuji, you have a question?
I want to thank Swamiji. Today, we have very few sources in the world that are available to understand the depths and realms of spirituality and true spirituality and Hinduism especially. And Swamiji is focusing on those and he is bringing those messages. I wanted to thank Swamiji. At the same time, this is a great conference in which once again I emphasize. And I like to thank Sri B.D. Mundraji from all the way coming from United States actually. We are seeing scientists and saints in one platform. So people who are in the middle and can learn from both ways. This is a great opportunity. Thank you, Swamiji.
Thank you, Madhuji. Now I request Dr. B.D. Munde. Now our next speaker is Dr. Gautam Pal. Dr. Gautam Pal completed his undergraduate in computer science and engineering in 2001 from Bengal Engineering College, deemed university. Now I just give a brief. He is working presently in ISI Calcutta. Instead of spending much time on introduction, I tell Gautam to take the stage and give his valuable speech. So now we request our next speaker, Mr. Rajat Kumar Pradhan. Mr. Rajat Kumar Pradhan is currently Assistant Professor and Head Department of Physics, Bhadrak Autonomous College. Did his BSc, MSc and MPhil in Physics from Utkal University, Bhubaneswar. His research interests are fundamentals of physics, quantum theories and others. So he has 16 publications in his credit. We are eager to hear from you.
Oh, worshipful homage to the Divine Presence, salutations and prostrations at the feet of Srila Prabhupada Ji, Dr. T.D. Singh Ji, and all saints and scientists and fellow participants. Thank you, Dr. Mukhopadhyay, Session Chair, for the kind introduction. I would like to also thank Vasudev Swamiji for kindly booking tickets for me. And I am indebted to the conference organizers for having given me this opportunity to talk to you on some recent research that I have done on incorporating consciousness, or rather in its aspect as the mind of the observer, into quantum theory. And I have later on, I have tried to make it applicable to quantum fields, and that way I have given a new interpretation of quantum theory, and this is the psychophysical interpretation of quantum theory. So I would like to all this, I think we all are very familiar, even the students of BI are familiar with all these things. Today morning also we had talks on these. Consciousness enters the theory unavoidably and unalterably. But scientists always like to do lateral thinking on consciousness. In mainstream scientific conferences, we never really hear much about consciousness, how it is present, because we do not have any handle on consciousness. We do not have a mathematical representation of consciousness. That is the main problem facing us, the hard problem or the binding problem. We don't have any handle. So therefore, this is again, it's our knowledge in the instant of registration that has its image in the discontinuous change in the probability function. We all know, in fact, in the morning, in the afternoon, Dr. Khan was talking about Pauli's ideas, which he expressed along with Jung, about the psychophysical parallelism That means that when I see an object, how do I recognize an object? How do I perceive an object? An object is out there. It forms an image in here, in my brain, actually a retinal image, which is translated into a neural correlate. And then from the neural correlate, how do I generate the idea of the object, which is out there, not in here? The neural correlate that is there, from that, how does perception arise? I am not seeing neurons. I am seeing an object which is out there, but it is actually in here, an image which is in here. So we can go up to the states, the neural states of the brain, and that is where the matter will end. So how to make a jump then? Nobody knows. And who is this conscious observer about whom we are discussing so much? It is the observer that gathers, classifies, organizes, analyzes, and interprets the data by looking at structural symmetries, regularities, periodicities, etc. And it is the observer again that proposes hypotheses, postulates, laws, and principles. And it builds theoretical models to satisfactorily explain these symmetries, etc., often using mathematical tools. So this kind of a conference actually has less of mathematical tools, and when it comes to consciousness and the operations of the mind, the tools actually become very, very rarer. And it is the consciousness again, the observer again, that tests the hypotheses that have been proposed by other centers of consciousness, other human beings, other scientists, even self-proposals. They test them by experiments, purposefully designing further tests. Fact-finding or maybe fault-finding so that they can improvise upon the theories. And it is this consciousness again which enunciates new hypotheses. That has been the course of evolution of physics all through these last 600 years or so. Now there are three inevitable bifurcations present in the entire scheme of science. What the reality is, nobody actually knows. And but we are into a bifurcation. That is the biggest bang that could have occurred. The subject-object separation. The biggest bang. Swamiji was talking about the cosmic subject separating itself from the cosmic object. And that is the level 1 of the bifurcation. Level 2, we analyze the objective universe by separating out a system. A particular space-time configuration out of that is taken as a system. It may be an electron, it may be a galaxy, but it's a part of what the whole of the objective reality is. And then what we do is, we have several interactions, system with the apparatus, and then the rest of the world interact also with the apparatus, and the rest of the world with the rest of the world actually we divide into two parts. One is the apparatus that we are using to gather information about a system, and then the environment. These are the three bifurcations. So how do we incorporate the conscious observer? And an interpretation is a set of statements that relates the structure of a theory to the reality that it is intended to describe. I am not saying it is reality capital R. It's reality. Okay. Quantum mechanics is probabilistic. There is the Born rule, and my research actually happens from Born rule. Born rule has psi star psi, the complex conjugate of the wave function. The wave function itself is in general a complex quantity, and that is not a physical quantity. The wave function represents the physical state of the system, but it itself is not a physical quantity. The significance that we attach to the wave function is that it is an amplitude for the probability that the system will be found in such and such position at such and such time. But we have to multiply it with a psi star. If psi represents the physical state, the state of the physical system, what could possibly psi star be representing? That is the basic question that has been neglected so far up to 1980s, when Professor John Kramer came up with the transactional interpretation of quantum mechanics. There he took up Wheeler-Feynman theory, the time-symmetric formulation of quantum electrodynamics, and there he incorporated for the first time, tried to at least interpret the psi star. Okay. And Well, how many I have passed in the meantime? Anyway, these are the problems. What does the wave function represent? It's a single system, an ensemble of systems, or knowledge of the system. Heisenberg would say that it represents our knowledge of the system. These are the problems which you know. But the maze of interpretations, you can just look at all of them. How many people have given how many interpretations? About 40 interpretations. If you Google search interpretation problem of quantum theory, you are going to get 20 odd, but afterwards there have been so many interpretations. And it continues. Like interpretations of the Bhagavad Gita, commentaries of the Bhagavad Gita. So observer-based interpretations, however, are very few. Very few. Von Neumann, of course, started the whole chain, and then participatory observer, many minds, subjective collapse of Stapp, consciousness stream of Manusakis, and this simplex quantum mechanics formalism by Don Page, who is a string theorist. And this one, last one, is my own interpretation. I don't know how far people will agree with this. This is a statement by Murray Gell-Mann. Niels Bohr brainwashed a whole generation of physicists into believing that the problem of the interpretation of the theory had been solved 50 years ago. So means 1926 plus 50, about 1956. It is about that time that Gell-Mann made this statement. So what is reality then? It is having two parts, inseparable parts, observer and the observed. We cannot separate out the observer from the observed. They are so intertwined. What does QM describe? Knowledge of the observed in the observer. Actually, this interpretation derives from Swami Vidyaranya's philosophy. In Panchadashi, he explains the theory of perception. There are two parts to it, Vritti Vyapti and then Phala Vyapti. So I have actually incorporated this view, Vedantic view, that Swami Vidyaranya gave. He was a Shankaracharya. Complex quantities, how do they give us? Well, so these are the basics. Question is, why should we need a psi star in order to get psi physically interpreted? It's a conjugate, and what can the conjugate possibly represent? So Kramer's interpretation and then Manusakis' interpretation, these two, when we introduce, along with Swami Vidyaranya's concept, we get what is this psychophysical interpretation. And there is this psychophysical parallelism, what Pauli aspired in those days. Even now, our Josephson is still aspiring in this mind-matter unification project. He wants this kind of a parallelism to be exploited. And you see, there is this parallelism. Any physical system has an image in the mind, otherwise there cannot be perception. Any perception entails that there be an image in the mind. So this is the interpretation of psychophysical interpretation. And wave function represents the knowledge of the observed, knowledge of the observer about the physical state of the observed system. So measurement has two parts. There is an interaction and there is then observation. So if the observer is passive, now what is interesting is, someone was, Madhuji was indicating that there have been some experiments where the double slit interference pattern has been tinkered with by 20-30 people sitting in that room and trying to deflect the photon in a particular slit rather than through both slits. And that experiment has been repeatedly undertaken by Dean Radin's group, and they have been reporting it time and again. Of course, mainstream scientists still fly away from these kind of experiments, but people have independently also verified. And therefore, as long as the observer is a mere spectator, a mere observer, he is not interfering, psychophysical parallelism is intact. He will just get the knowledge of the system, but the observer can influence the system. That is the success of psychophysical interpretation where the observer is active, it can willfully change an interference pattern. This I name as the quantum psychokinetic effect. And I could explain what they observed in those experiments of Radin et al. I could explain employing psychophysical interpretation. They get a quantity which comes out to be negative. And I explained that it has to be negative, doing mathematical calculations. So I think this is self-explanatory. What is the state of affairs in the von Neumann scheme? Von Neumann scheme is twofold. One is the information sequence, which propagates via retarded waves. It starts with the system. The system is in some state, psi n t0. That means post-reduction. The system has already collapsed to the nth state. System has already collapsed, but the observer has not yet known. There is a difference. There are two collapses actually. One is the objective collapse, the other is a subjective collapse. Even if you know something, I may not be knowing. For knowing the state of a system that you already know you have collapsed, for me to know, I have to either communicate with you or I have to directly make the observation on the system. There is no third way. So therefore, that system, information, the signal, retarded signals from the system go to the instrument. The instrument then falls to the corresponding state, phi n, at a later time. Then that goes to the brain through signals. And then in the brain it is processed, and there is abstract ego of von Neumann. And then this sequence is reversed in time. This proceeds via advanced waves of the Wheeler-Feynman theory. This is the star sequence. These are all bras. Upstairs are all kits. They are physical states. These are all mental images. Starting from the brain state that we have, why the brain state is a reversed state, that will come later. Pointer state. These are all images. These are all images. And the system state. I can just give you one example. I see this thing. This thing actually is creating an image behind the eye lens. So what is behind the eye lens is appearing as in front of the eye lens. My interpretation from the brain state is that what is behind the eye lens, I am telling that I am perceiving that this is actually into the eye lens. If you take the eye lens as the origin, it is in the negative side of the axis. But I am concluding that it is in the positive side. Not only that, the images are left-right inverted, top-down inverted, because this is a convex lens. And these inverted images in space, they are re-inverted. And it appears that it is in front of me. The image actually is upside down. It appears as downside up. Now this inversion is done by the abstract ego in the process of analyzing. Now this is the Vedantic theory of perception only. This then time reversal. Suppose I look at the sun now. The sun's radiations that come here take about 8 minutes. Now what is my conclusion? My conclusion is not that I am seeing a sun which is 8 minutes younger. I am seeing a sun now. How do I get this? I am seeing a star which is 30,000 light years away. But I feel that I see it now. How do I see a mirage? These are questions which have remained unanswered, and therefore we get the answers here. And this has so many things built into it, and therefore this is a notable success of that interpretation which Radin et al. Have mentioned in their, they have reported in these physics essays articles. So, but my thing is, I wanted to talk about quantum field theories, but that will take a lot of time. I think I am running out of time. But all of you have that proceedings volume, and the article is there. Actually, it is part of what I had written earlier. Rest part will be published elsewhere. But this will lead to solutions to everything. All problems that we face, everything will be solved. I'll quickly go through the antiparticles that we hear about. the antiparticles, the interpretation of antiparticles in quantum field theories, that has been a big problem. Stockelberg and Feynman, they tried to go around it by postulating that the negative energies are not observable because they move backwards in time and so on. But that this interpretation gives a lot of see, if something travels from A to B, how do I conclude that it has traveled from A to B? Unless I have an image which I can reverse in my mind from B to A. Just think about it. How do we perceive motion? From A to B, if an object goes, if continuously I erase the memory of the movement, point by point, if continuously memory is erased, there is no question that I can conclude that an object has come from A to B. From A to B, there must be a continuity of a sequence of images in the mind, which I am able to retrieve through the operations of memory. So I operate on the memory, the ego operates on the memory, retrieves that, and that is done. The moving backwards in time is a prerogative only of consciousness. Physically, there is no backward time movement, only consciousness. I want to go to the food point because I want to eat. Teleology. I want to eat. The cause is there. Cause happens later. The effect is now I am moving towards the food point. I am moving towards the food point in order to take food. To take food, that is the cause. That is the cause. And the cause is there, coming there. The effect has already started operating. So this teleology, this backward time causation, this is incorporated in this interpretation. And lot of things are there. So you can, I am running out of time, my train is there. Many thanks to Vasudevji, many thanks to the organizers. My worshipful pranams to everybody present here. Thank you very much for giving me this patient hearing. Thank you. Lot of problems will be solved. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Pradhan, for providing us your interpretation along with others' interpretations. Now we can take a quick one or two questions. Okay, if there is no questions, then we can move to next speaker. Now, Dr. Gautam Pal, the assistant professor, ISI Calcutta, will speak.
In Gita, the Lord says, Aham Atma, I am the Atman. And in Chandogya Upanishad, it says that Atmata, Smara, Atmata, Prana, so on and so forth, until everything comes from Atman. And Swamiji now quoted, Shivam, Santam, Shivam, Advaitam, Chaturtam, Mannante. That means only Atma only. But Atma means it may be consciousness. And one thing I have a doubt, can you clarify scientifically whether consciousness is a condition of matter or not?
No question.
They are all saying matter comes from consciousness. All this I quoted, that is the conclusion. But I want to know scientifically whether consciousness is a condition of matter or not. If not, why or how?
Yes, and this should not be difficult for Indian minds who have progressed a little bit into philosophy.
It should not be blindly believed.
No, it is not. All right. I understand your question. What has happened is actually a reversal of the stream of wisdom that we had. When we start looking at things from the point of view of the Western science or Western philosophy, things start getting muddled. Otherwise, what we can do now is, what I am doing is, we have to have some middle ground at least. Well, all matter comes from consciousness. That is absolutely true. But the Western approach is that...
No, I am speaking only Indian approach. I have not gone through this Western philosophy.
No,
I have read only Indian philosophy.
Then it is a settled fact.
There are two views. There are so many views. One view is the matter is coming from consciousness. And that means consciousness either become matter or it appears as matter. But that is also true in what happens in the dreams. that need not be explained. But there is another view also, that consciousness is a condition of matter.
That view is the Western view.
No,
that
Indian view.
Acha. But I don't know any Indian view which says that consciousness comes from matter.
There are 9 philosophies in India, there are not six. And I have gone through. That is why I want to
maybe,
know
but
it
I don't know if there is any such view.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I have one question actually. I have one question. That the Newman thing, this Bry and Kit, usually if there is only one, it actually denotes one state. And if you close from the other side, that's basically an integral.
Yes.
So how, I mean, here what is it? Can you little explain? It was not clear to me actually. I mean, one side, these are all one side bracket, other side.
Yes.
What it is actually?
Yes. Reality comes when the subject and the object come together, otherwise not. The subject and the object have to come together. When we are forming a bracket, a product, a scalar product, by taking a bra and a kit, we are getting an amplitude for a process. We are getting an amplitude for a process by
What do you mean by the amplitude? I mean,
probability amplitudes.
Probability amplitude, okay.
Probability amplitudes. And then mod square gives the probability.
Okay, that way, okay.
So in the
basically you are meaning the measurements, okay.
Yes.
Thank you, Dr. Pradhan. We'll move to next speaker, Professor Pal.
So it's interesting to observe quantum uncertainty already in the change of the laptop, but anyway, now everything is settled. So the disadvantage of speaking in the last session, and all the other speakers are also sharing the same thing, I believe, is that most of the things might already have been repeated. So I would be brief, and I would like to avoid the mathematical details which are there in the proceedings, which you can find. Okay. So the title is, Can Quantum Physics Be the Science of Both Matter and Spirit? Okay. So this is a brief overview, which and I have put here physics, information and computation, because at the current stage everybody is talking about the quantum computer. So as we can see that the concept of classical physics dates back to Aristotle as we know it today. It might have existed earlier, and the quantum physics started with Planck, that you heard yesterday. Then the notion of classical information was given by Claude Shannon in 1948 with the notion of entropy, measurement of randomness, and the quantum analog was developed after that, and Gordon developed those concepts deeply. Then the notion of classical computation began formally in 1937 due to Alan Turing, and Richard Feynman in 1982 talked about the possibility of quantum computation. He said that let nature compute for us. Okay. So now the subject of quantum physics, quantum information and quantum computation are actually intertwined. Okay. So we cannot talk about one without talking about the other. Now, so this is one old experiment, but it actually led to the development of what are called the postulates of quantum mechanics. Though Planck started it, and then Einstein, did photoelectric effect, and so there were different formulations. But the modern formal quantum mechanics, so you start with this postulate about quantum state, about wave function, then the postulate about measurement. So those things are motivated from these experiments. So I will not go into the details. So there is a source of silver atom on the left. Silver atom has one unpaired electron in the outermost shell. So when you excite it, it gets ejected, and there is a non-uniform magnetic field in the vertical direction. So it gets deflected. So it is expected that you will get a continuous pattern on the screen because the magnetic field is non-uniform, but it so happens that you find discrete pattern. So most of the electrons concentrate either on the top or on the bottom. So those are marked as spin plus half, minus half. And if we fix the coordinate so that the the motion of the electron is in the y direction and the magnetic field is working in the z direction, then we can call it the z measurement. Okay? So, now let us abstract this, let us look into this box, and suppose we are doing z measurement. In the similar fashion, we can do x direction measurement and y direction measurement by rotating the apparatus and changing the movement of the electron, right. So, now let us say I sent, so this is about quantum uncertainty, how it is different from classical uncertainty. So, this slide will explain it. So, suppose in quantum, this up state and the down state, like for example, if I do this experiment, if I send 100 electrons, 50 of them will land up on the top and 50 of them will land up at the bottom, right. But that does not tell us about the quantum nature of the system, because even in classical probability theory, classical statistics, we can have such a system. We throw 100 balls, 50 can land up, 50 can land up down. That can happen in classical thing also. But let's look at closely. So, in quantum thing, we have 100 particles, let us say, we do the z measurement, let us say roughly 50 lands up being up and 50 lands up being down. Now, we block the particles which have been marked down and we send the particles which have been marked up in the z experiment, and we do the x direction measurement, okay, by changing my apparatus, right. Then we find that again 50% of the particles, that means if it was originally 100, then 50 blocked, 50 going in. So, 25 lands up being up and down. So, then we understand this up down property is actually in the x direction is different from the z direction, but still it does not give us the complete picture. Now, we can do a third experiment which will surprise us. Why? Because see, when we did the z measurement, we were not surprised in the x measurement, because we thought, okay, those are orthogonal coordinates. So, the x up and down has nothing to do with z up and down. So, even if we have z up filtered, we are getting x up and down, fine. Now, we block at the second level the x down particles and we repeat the z measurement. Okay. So, it is expected that we will get z up because we have only filtered the particles which showed z up, but it will not happen. Experiments tell us, and this is repeatable experiments, so people have done it multiple times, they are again 50% of the remaining particles that entered the last stage, 50% of that remaining input goes up and then it goes down. So, that means the nature of randomness in the quantum domain is fundamentally different than the nature of randomness in the classical domain. And there are many such experiments, and after all these experiments, the physicists were trying to formally define or describe the subject, and that led to the formalism of this, these quantum postulates about this state is something, a vector in Hilbert space and so on and so forth. I am not going into the detail. Then measurement is something you do in orthonormal basis, and the previous speaker also explained it to some extent. Then you can go from single particle to multiple particle. So, you can form product of the vectors, it is called tensor product, which will give you the joint state of both the particles and so on. But all these postulates, about the observable being an Hermitian operator and then the values observed being one of the eigenvalues, all those things, they are not real. They are just a mathematical model to describe what you observe in experiment. Okay? What actually happens inside, that nobody knows. Okay? The experiment is real, the observation is real, that is repeatable, but why it happens, nobody knows. Just to capture that, okay, on this type of input, on this type of processing and arrangement, we are getting this type of output. Just to model it, this kind of mathematical structure has been imposed externally, and we do not know whether this is the most perfect model. There could exist a better model. Okay? Maybe there will be some experiment which will contradict this formalism, and then we will need a different set of postulates probably. So, next I wanted to talk about quantum entanglement. So, entanglement also, if you go by textbook definitions, they will tell you that, okay, we have the joint state of the particle. If we cannot factor the state, we cannot write it as a product of two individual states, it is entangled. But again, that comes afterwards. So that's a manipulated definitions, I would say. The real thing is that you can, by physical process, you can create correlation between two particles at the quantum level, say electron spin or photon polarization or whatever, such that if you even if you take those particles far apart at two different galaxies even, still that correlation will remain. Okay? So in the sense that we can have a state, let's say 1 by root 2, then up down plus down up, something like that. Then if the first particle after measurement lands up in the up state, then the second particle will always land up in the down state. And if the first particle lands up in the down state, the second particle will land up in the up state. So the output of measurement of the first particle dictates the output of measurement of the second particle. So in that sense, they are entangled. But why this entanglement happens? Fundamentally, how the informations are connected, that is not known. Okay? So, so for example, these are the properties. It is independent of physical distance. It's preserved by local unitary. So Schrödinger tells us that the quantum evolution, unless you do measurement, so all the quantum evolutions can be explained by unitary transformation. Okay? So if you do, so you have a pair of entangled particles, you separate them into different regions of the universe, and then you do local unitary operations, local quantum evolution of on the first particle, but still the entanglement will remain, okay, even if you don't do anything on the other particle. So that's a very peculiar thing. It's destroyed by measurement only. And there is a misconception that entanglement leads to faster than light communication. Actually, it does not, because let's say there are two observers. Okay? Observer 1 with the first particle in one part of the universe, and observer 2 with the second particle in the other part of the universe. We are saying that they are entangled, meaning if the observer 1 measures the first particle and knows the state of the first particle, then the state of the second particle is deterministically fixed, okay, with probability 1. But the question is, how will the second observer that is there will know about the state of the second particle? Who is going to tell that observer, right? So if the first particle lands up, then the second particle will land up down and vice versa. But the second observer needs to be told what is the state of the first particle, right? Only then the second observer can infer about the fixed collapsed state of the second particle. So the second particle is in the fixed state, but from the observer's point of view, it is still unknown. So that means we need a classical information to be transmitted. That means whether the first particle landed up or down, that's one bit of classical information needs to be transmitted from the first observer to the second observer before the second observer can actually conclude anything about the state of the second particle. So it does not lead to faster than light communication, because the communication of that classical information, the state of the first particle, needs again light or some other kind of similar signal. Okay? So that's one thing. Then, of course, then people tried to explain entanglement, and there was a lot of approaches. One prominent approach was hidden variable theory. So people said that there is a variable which is hidden, which is not captured in the existing model. So because it's hidden, we cannot measure it, we do not know it. But if someone could know it, then everything will be deterministic. There is no randomness in the quantum world. Okay? Now, the problem is that Bell's theorem, a consequence of Bell's theorem in 1964 is that if the hidden variable theory is local, then it is not consistent with quantum mechanics. That means quantum mechanics as a formal subject breaks down. So if there has to be any local, there has to be any hidden variable theory, that means if you need to incorporate hidden variable to explain deterministically quantum mechanics, then those variables have to be non-local. But again, then it becomes imagination, because non-local hidden variable means how those variables maintain correlations amongst themselves without any physical signal transmission, and that too limited by this, the speed of light. So that is not explained. Okay? And yeah, so that's the kind of non-locality. So I'm not going into the details. Then there is one interesting result in 2006 by two physicists. It's called free will theorem. So they tell that under some suitable assumptions, the assumptions are listed there. Basically, the first one is the relativistic assumption about the speed of light. The second one is about the spin. And the third assumption is about the entanglement. So under that assumption, they can prove that if the experimenters, the two experimenters, two observers who are doing the experiment, they are free to make choices about what measurements to take. That means whether I am measuring in one particular basis or another particular basis, right? Then the results of the measurement cannot be determined by anything previous to the experiments. That means you cannot predict the result. You have to wait until the experiments happen. So that's a formal, you can prove it as a formal theorem. But it has the assumption that the experimenter or the observer have to choose the devices and the configuration of the devices freely. Okay? There is a stronger version of it, but I'm not going into the detail. But informally, what the weaker and the stronger version of this theorem imply is that if the observer has a free will, in the sense that the observer can choose the configuration, then the elementary particles must also possess similar free will. Okay? So the free will of the electron or the photon emerges as a consequence of the free will of the observer. So that's kind of the informal implication of this free will theorem, which is a very recent one. Then about teleportation, the math is there in the proceedings, but I want to just explain pictorially. So many of you are familiar with this term teleportation due to the famous TV series Star Trek or the movie Matrix, in which one person disappears from one location and teleports himself or herself in another location, right? So there, let's say these Alice and Bob, they are separated, and Alice has a state psi, which Alice wants to teleport to Bob. So Alice has a state psi, and Bob wants to recreate the state psi. And they have to use entanglement as a resource. So that means this Charlie provides the entangled particle. So one of the pair remains with Alice, and the other pair is sent to Bob. So now Alice has two particles, one particle with the state psi that Alice wants to transmit to Bob, and the second particle is the one from the entangled pair. So Alice has these two particles, and Bob has only one particle with the entangled state, and Alice wants to change that state of Bob's particle, right? Bob has a single particle. So what Alice will do some joint Bell measurement on these two particles that Alice has, the particle containing the state she wants to transmit, and the new particle which comes from entanglement. And the textbooks or the papers about teleportation will tell you that by linear algebra you can calculate that, okay, I have this state, it's combined like that, then you take some term common, and then you apply the measurement postulate, and then the state psi pops up automatically at Bob's side, like a magic, right? Now, the problem is, this linear algebra formulation of quantum mechanics, this is coming due to the postulates. The postulates which were artificially designed to explain the experimental results without understanding why it has to be this way. The problem is, the mathematics works fine, it models the behavior, but it cannot tell us how this information contained in psi, because information theoretically, the state psi, even if it is a single particle, 1 qubit state, it actually has infinite amount of information, because even a 1 qubit state is described by a pair of complex number, which needs infinite amount of information to represent to precision, right? So that infinite amount of information is being transmitted to Bob almost instantaneously in finite time without any transfer of mass or energy. Okay? So there is no physical transfer of mass, there is no physical transfer of energy, there is no physical transfer, but the information is being transmitted. So that is kind of very peculiar. Right? But one thing you should note, that teleportation does not mean that this particle disappears here at Alice's end and reappears there at Bob's end. It simply means the state of the particle at Alice's end is copied to the state of the particle at Bob's end. Both the particles remain at their respective locations. Okay? So the particles don't reappear and disappear, they remain there. Okay. So then I wanted to talk about this interesting experiment, delayed choice, which kind of points to consciousness issues. The experiment is pretty simple. So you have it's a version of the double slit experiment. The double slit experiment everybody knows, so I'm not talking about that. So there are two slits, you have one photon. So if the photon behaves like a particle, it will go through one of the slits. If it goes through the top slit, then the lens will project to the bottom telescope. And if it goes to the bottom slit, then the lens will converge it to the top telescope. Okay? If the particle behaves as a wave, then it will interfere, and you can see interference pattern. Now, the blue vertical line, the second blue vertical line in the middle, it actually it shows a detection screen. Now, it turns out that if you do not place the detection screen, the middle blue, the second blue vertical line on the right, then if you don't place that detection screen, then one photon is detected either in telescope 1 and telescope 2, which is telling you that it has behaved as a particle. If you place the detection screen there, then even if you send one photon or one electron, you see interference pattern. That means the electron and photon, the single electron or single photon has passed through both the slits as if like a wave and has interfered with itself. That is fine. That's just one version of double slit experiment. But delayed choice tells us that when the electron has started its journey and it is meeting one of the two slots, or it's meeting the first blue line which contains the two slots, right? Either the top slot or the bottom slot. When the electron is at the first blue line, the electron must have already decided either to behave as a wave or to behave as a particle, right? So delayed choice means, let's say the second screen is present there, right? Then we are expected to see interference pattern, and suppose the electron or the photon, the particle has passed through the first blue vertical line. That means it has already decided to behave as a wave because the detection screen is there. Now, between the time that it is in the first blue line and the second blue line, in that middle journey, during that journey, I decide to remove the second blue screen. Okay? So that means I choose to remove the second blue screen after the electron passes through the slit. Then, surprisingly, it was supposed to behave as a wave. Now it behaves as a particle. So then there are multiple interpretations, right? That means, does my future decision of keeping the screen or removing the screen affect the past? Because the electron has already made a decision. It has already passed through the hole. And now I am removing the screen. Actually, this was a thought experiment proposed by Wheeler in 1978. But because of this difficulty, because you need to precisely remove the second screen or put the second screen very fast, when the electron has went past the first slot and it has not reached the second screen during that time. So that kind of thing could not be done at the technology available during that time, but it has been repeated in 2012, 2015. Very recently, this experiment has been done and people has confirmed that this actually really happens. One version of it is called quantum eraser, which erases some information and then it remembers that information again. So it's kind of a ghostly thing, kind of future affecting the past. So then people tried to explain it, bringing consciousness into the picture. So there is some model which is telling the device that is measuring, that has a quantum state. So the quantum state of the device is interacting with the quantum state of the particle. The screen has a quantum state. Then some people started being the observer, one who is observing that person has a quantum state. So now you can build your model, make it more and more complicated. But what happens in reality, that nobody knows. But this at least tells us that consciousness has some role to play. Only this much we can infer. Another very recent work, this is reported in 2012, which tells us that the mind of the observer can actually bias the measurement output. So I can have a state prepared in such a way that with 50% probability it will land up, with 50% probability it will land up down, right? Surprisingly, there are 6 sets of experiments performed. It was published in Physics Essays in 2012. And 6 experiments were performed in 6 different labs, okay, situated at 6 different geographic locations by different people, different sets of people. And what the people were asked? The people were asked to focus on the double slit when the experiment was happening, okay? So either they are asked to focus on the double slit or they are asked to focus away from the double slit when the experiment is happening. And it is found that the ratio of the interference pattern's spectral power to its single slit spectral power, so the spectral power of double slit is different from the spectral power of the single slit, and it has a ratio. And its ratio was decreasing when the attention was focused towards the double slit, and the ratio was increasing when the attention was moved away from the double slit. Okay? So in no other way you can explain it other than bringing the consciousness of the people doing the meditation or doing the focus on the double slit during the experiment. So that tells us that yes, consciousness of the observer has some role to play. Okay? So so then I wanted to talk about quantum models of consciousness, but I will not go into detail because of lack of time. There are many interpretations. The oldest one goes to von Neumann, then the other one is Riccardi, then Wigner, then Beck and Eccles. Eccles is a Nobel laureate in physiology. And these are all basically trying to use quantum mechanics at some level in order to explain the behavior of the brain, in order to explain how consciousness evolves in the brain. Okay? And there is one work by Penrose, 1996. These are only the prominent works. Of course, there are many recent works. And the latest one I saw in 2015, Annals of Physics. It's called Quantum Cognition by Matthew Fisher. But the problem with all this work is that they can explain at the subatomic level what happens, let's say at the synaptic link where neuron is sending neurotransmitters from one neuron to the other neuron. At that level, what quantum mechanical phenomena happens, that can be modeled. But this, that quantum mechanical phenomena is fairly random. Now, how does this collection of apparently independent, apparently random phenomena, behavior, collectively, they give rise to a coherent, logical thought process and output at the macroscopic level. So at the microscopic level, we have randomness, we have scatteredness, but when we combine them at the macroscopic level, the level at which we actually experience things, we decide, we make decision, we decide it is good or bad, I will do this, I will not do this. So that macroscopic decision is rational and that is not random, right? That is based on our past experience, that is based on our present condition, that is based on our analysis power, everything. So the question is how that non-randomness emerges out of randomness, that cannot be explained by any of the models. So pretty much all these authors at some level, either at the conclusions of their paper or in public interviews, they tell that at the deep of their heart they believe that they need to bring in something else outside this whole quantum mechanical model, analogous to the spirit or the soul, whatever you may call it. Okay, so the rose is a rose, doesn't matter, whatever you can call it. So you need to bring in some metaphysical entity which is required actually for this behavior, for this non-random behavior, for this non-random free will, for this non-random choice, which is being exhibited at the macroscopic level. Okay? So the big question is this, which I already talked about. The lesson is we need a different kind of science. So my claim is that this quantum mechanics is ultimately science, or quantum physics is ultimately a science of the matter, because it originated in order to explain certain phenomena, certain experiments that were performed on matter. In order to explain that, the subject was developed, the whole mathematics was developed. So it is a matter-oriented development, right? though it gives us some hint that maybe consciousness has some role to play. And yesterday, we heard a talk by Prabhuji from Bhaktivedanta Institute, Vasudev Prabhuji. He talked about gross body, subtle body, and spiritual body, right? Now, it can happen that the subtle body, mind, intelligence, and false ego, and the tangible metal gross body, because we know that from the Vedic spiritual science, we know that the spiritual body or the soul is a different entity from either the gross body or the subtle body. So, it may be the case that quantum physics can explain the physics of gross body, and it may be able to explain the physics of subtle body. It may be able to explain the physics of mind or physics of intelligence, physics of false ego. That is fine. But still, those are not consciousness. Those are not spirit soul. Okay? So that is something else. So my conjecture is, in order to understand the spiritual entity, the soul, the consciousness, the one which is actually making the free choice, which is exhibiting free will, that entity cannot be analyzed by this material science like quantum physics. For that, we need a completely different kind of science. Even Krishna tells in Bhagavad Gita that these two kinds of entities are completely different. Right? One is this matter, the other is spirit, para and apara. These are two different. So we need different kinds of science. And of course, there could be many alternative models. What I say is that Vedic spiritual science is one viable model, one viable candidate for this alternative science, which is an attempt to explain the soul or consciousness. Okay? Of course, there are evidences of soul from other domains also, through the phenomena of reincarnation, near-death experience, out-of-body experience. And these are not hoaxes, because you can go to the mainstream medical literature. There are many doctors, for example, Dr. Ian Stevenson. His book has been published by University Press, Pennsylvania. Then there are other neuroscientists. There are a lot of books and papers written by them. These are all books written by doctors and neurologists. Okay, so which gives strong evidences. So the final word is that we have to be careful when we apply quantum physics to consciousness. So remember the mechanism of teleportation, right? So in teleportation, I told you that it is not disappearance of your physical body and reappearance of physical body on the other side. So some people try to explain teleportation to be like we hear in mythology, some demigod like say Narada or any other demigod disappearing in one place and reappearing in another place. Okay? So that may be true in that context, but what I say is that quantum physics may not be able to explain that phenomena, even if that happens. Why? Because ultimately, what it means that you have a set of physical particles, your body is made of physical particles, right? Many billions of physical particles. So you are teleporting each of them, you are teleporting the state of each of them. So that means, let's say you have 599 billions of particles making up your body. So on the far end, at the other end of the cosmos, where you are transmitting your state, you have a different 599 billion particles, completely different set. Those particles are copying the state of these 599 particles. So that is reconstructing the state, right? So that is transmitting only the physical quantum state of these particles to those particles, right? So if the body is quantum, if the mind is quantum, if the intelligence is quantum, if the false ego is quantum, it can transmit everything, that is fine. But because the implications of these experiments and from physics and from biology is that soul or consciousness is a different entity. It's a metaphysical entity, not matter. So the teleportation cannot teleport the so-called state. I don't know what state it is. It's not quantum, some other state of the soul. So the person that will be recreated on the other end, even if we are successful to do it, like sci-fi movies, so that person will have everything like the person here, but will that person have the same self-identity? Will that person identify itself with the same individual that you identified yourself before teleporting yourself? There is a big question. Okay? So that's one caveat. Second issue is that, which I already mentioned, that it may be applicable to mind, which many people are successfully doing, including Professor Amit Goswami. But my view is that it may not be applicable to soul. And I want to conclude with the fact that Vedic spiritual science is not only a model. So model is something which you hypothesize, which you make up in order to explain the physical observation. So reincarnation, near-death experience, out-of-body experience, effect of consciousness on the quantum measurement, which I told you, all these are physically real observations. Now, in order to explain this spiritual model, Vedic spiritual model which has been proposed, that's a model. But how do I test the model? How do I know this model is correct? So any model, if I claim it to be scientific, that model has to be verifiable, right? So that means there must be some process to test the validity of the model. And interestingly, this Vedic spiritual science not only gives you the model, not only tells you, okay, there is soul, there is super soul or God, there is this cycle of birth and death, this is happening. It does not tell you this fact. It gives you a systematic, step-by-step, repeatable and verifiable process also in order to understand the model, validate the model. And this is not a single process, it's a whole body of, whole gamut of processes, which is which can be called yoga. And once you do the experiment and observation in this process, you can finally experience and maybe realize the consciousness or so. So I conclude here, and thank you for your attention.
Okay, thank you, Gautam. Now we'll take one or two questions just.
Hello.
What is the intention behind the delayed choice experiment?
So the intention behind the delayed choice experiment was to show peculiarity of quantum physics, that how it is different from classical physics, because that kind of delayed choice does not happen in classical domain. Mm-hmm. In classical domain, even if you do the delayed choice, the outcome is already predetermined.
You always had this electron diffraction experiments and others. Mm-hmm. So what additional information the delayed choice is?
Yes, so the additional information it is telling us that it is not only the quantum state of the electron that we have to consider, we have to consider the quantum state of the screen and the quantum state of the observer also into account in order to explain the measurement output. That's what it is hinting at.
Because the word choice is indicating something. That means the light is sort of choosing.
Yeah.
So to be either behave as a wave or particle. Mm-hmm. And something related to that, maybe can you throw some light? And my second question is that if quantum physics, like classical physics, is actually telling how matter is behaving.
So I think
and matter, if you look from the Vedantic model, mm-hmm. matter and the spirit, they are connected. You cannot separate them.
Correct.
So why then you are making this statement that this quantum, if the quantum physics is correctly describing matter, then definitely it is describing some aspect of spirit also.
Yeah, that's
so
why.
So far as its relation with the matter is concerned. In fact, Bhagavad Gita, Krishna is telling that if you want to understand me, first you understand the physical nature. Mm-hmm. So then why, you are cutting off totally quantum physics from the understanding of the soul.
So my view on that would be that this mind, intelligence and ego does not exist in the spiritual domain, right? When the soul comes in the material world, then these three things are attached.
No, I understand. What you want to say, there are certain other aspects of the soul which will remain unexplained in the...
Yeah. So that's what I'm not telling that quantum physics cannot connect it. I'm not denying that.
Because the statement can be...
So let me clarify that, so when soul interacts with the matter, it cannot interact directly, right? It has to interact with the mediation of this mind, intelligence and ego.
Right.
So, there quantum physics has definitely a role to play about, even if not fully, at least partially explaining the behavior of this mind, intelligence and ego through which the soul is interacting with the matter, right? So in that way we can have a partial peek into the nature of the soul. So quantum physics can definitely help us in that way. But what I am trying to say is that it may not be complete. I'm not saying it is not complete, it may not be complete, because the original motivation was to explain, the whole formalism was built to explain the experiments related to matter only. So the soul and consciousness was not originally there when these postulates were formed. Maybe we need to correct it, maybe we need to add some more postulates in order to combine both soul and matter. I'm not saying they cannot be combined.
No, that is true. And anyway, if you have time, then if the chairperson allows some time, that the delayed choice experiment, that's, I mean, because that's a very interesting thing. Something, it has some other intention. Because just the quantum nature is already established by the other.
Yeah, so here the intention was the choice of the device and the choice of the observer. So that was not established earlier to that extent. So the free will of the observer comes more prominently after the delayed choice experiment.
Okay, thank you, Professor Ghosh, for your correction. Okay. Thank you, Professor Gautam, for your nice speech. So now I request Professor P.K. Singh, a professor from BHU, to provide moment to Dr. Pradhan. He has to leave early because he has a train. Please.
Thank you.
So that we can save time.
Yeah. So our next speaker is Nishant Samant and Girish M. So Girish M received his B.Tech from NIT Calicut, and he is presently working. Then Nishant Samant, he is presently working as a consultant in a senior consultant in Novartis, Hyderabad. He is B Farm. So we'll hear from them on, say, other aspects also.
We thank you very much. It's been a long day, and we appreciate your patience. You're sitting here. That's encouraging us a little bit. My name is Girish. I work as a scientist in DRDO, Bangalore. I have come from there. So today we will be telling you a story. So that's what we thought, and we thought that might interest you. And today's topic is about consciousness. We are not going much into quantum physics because we feel there has been a lot of discussion and brainstorming on that. So we thought, let's discuss something about consciousness. And am I audible clearly? Thank you. So how does any story start? So if you open any fairy tale, you see once upon a time, right? So we'll not go once upon a time, we'll go to some specific year, and the year is 1828. So the next. So before that, if you just Google what is life, this is what answer you get. The condition that distinguishes animals and plants from inorganic matter, and there is a property of growth, reproduction and functional activity. So I want to draw your attention to the word inorganic compounds because that will be required for our next storytelling. So in our the first year we are going to visit in our storytelling is the year 1828. You might be wondering what has happened in that year. So we will see what has happened. So 1828 is a special year because that year urea was synthesized from inorganic compounds. Now you might be wondering what is so special in that. Up until then, urea was thought to be produced only by living systems. So for the first time, German chemist Friedrich Wöhler synthesized urea from inorganic compounds. So this initiated a revolution in chemistry, but it also initiated a revolution in thought. Because people began to think that perhaps if we can produce a living byproduct from inorganic compounds, entire life itself could be originated from chemicals. So that means life has a chemical origin, and if it has a chemical origin, it becomes physical in nature. So this is very important thing, the year 1828, and then during the same time, a few years later, you all would have heard the name Charles Darwin. Charles Darwin enjoys a very monopolistic position in the field of biology. His theory, Origin of Species, attempts to explain the way the species and speciation occurs. However, the theory is incomplete because it does not give an account for origin of life itself. For Darwin's theory to work, you need to have life in the first place, because natural selection can only work on already existing life. So Darwin knew that his theory also should give some idea about the origin of life, and he wrote a letter to his friend, and this is in the year 1871, and Charles Darwin expressed his speculation, or rather it's better to use wishful thinking, in the idea of chemical origin of life. So he wrote to his friend that perhaps can we conceive some warm little pond in the early earth atmosphere where you have electric discharges, phosphorus and other things present, and perhaps because of these interactions some complex changes will happen, and that might give rise to the origin of life itself. So this was Charles Darwin's idea. Next. So a few decades later, two scientists, Oparin and Haldane, they hypothesized the chemical evolution of life. So as you can see on the screen there, which is actually a graphical representation of chemical evolution. So this is the idea of abiogenesis. If you would have read in your chemistry textbooks, abiogenesis hypothesizes that in the early earth atmosphere, the inorganic compounds in the early earth ocean, given the electric discharges and light, and because of the continuous chemical reaction, can give rise to hydrocarbons, which are actually the stuff of life. So one of the important assumptions in Oparin-Haldane hypothesis is that the early earth atmosphere was reducing in nature. Now what means reducing in nature? Hydrogen was abundantly available, and it would give its electrons and promote chemical activities to form hydrocarbons. Next. So this was just an hypothesis, Oparin and Haldane, but Urey Miller in the year 1953 tried to demonstrate or put that hypothesis to test. So what they did, they conjectured this apparatus where the water was heated, which was sort of a simulation of early, the evaporation, and then they injected the early atmosphere gases and they gave certain electric discharges, and it was allowed to condense, which is like water vapor condense and produces rain. So this whole experiment was repeated, and after a week or so, in the mixture there at the bottom, they got a few amino acids. Now what is an amino acid? If you all know, we have proteins in our body. Proteins are basically the building blocks. So proteins, the fundamental units in protein are amino acids. So we have 20 amino acids. My friend will be discussing that in detail. Next. Then in the year 1953, James Watson and Francis Crick, they used this X-ray diffraction studies and they tried to analyze the structure of DNA. So if you recollect, this is the DNA. DNA stands for deoxyribonucleic acid, that is found inside the nucleus of the cell. So there is a cell, there is a nucleus, inside that is the DNA. But what is important, I want to draw your attention, is that DNA consists, you would have heard A, T, G and C, the digital alphabets, that is adenine, thymine, guanine and cytosine. So DNA consists of these 4 nucleotide bases, and in the early 2000 the entire human genome project got completed. The famous biologist Francis Collins, he headed that project, and now you all might be aware that our entire human genome has been read. What is actually reading of human genome? You have a sequence of A, T, T, G, C, C, basically the nucleotides in the DNA. So that's like blueprint of life. So as we did more and more advance in the field of molecular biology, we began to understand that cell is not as simple as we think. The cell is a very complex thing, and in fact it's a very mind-boggling processes which are going there. So I request my friend Nikhil, who will give more information about cell.
Thank you, Girish. So let us try to understand what is cell. Right from a unicellular organism to a multicellular organism, If you see, have a look at a bacteria, or if you have a look at a multicellular element or a human being, the common thing which is present is a cell. So cell is a structural, functional, fundamental unit of a living entity. So if you see, if you have a look at the cell can be compared to a city. Now if you see a Kolkata city, there are so many things happening in the Kolkata city. Similarly, inside the cell also there are so many processes are happening. So many things are happening. Like there is a Krebs cycle, there is a glycolysis happening, then there is electron transfer by which the ATPs are generated, then there is a protein synthesis which is happening. So many things are happening inside the cell. So to understand a subject like a consciousness, we should have a look at the fundamental and structural level of the cell. So you can see here, the cells can be divided into two things, like a prokaryotic cell and a eukaryotic cell. Most of the studies are being carried out in the prokaryotic cell, and eukaryotic cells are also being studied in fields of molecular biology and medicine. Please next. Yeah. So let us try to understand a little bit what exactly is a cell. So cell basically has three components, three basic components. One is a cell wall, by which it communicates with its external environment. Second is a cytoplasm, in which there are different organelles present, like a mitochondria, which is a powerhouse of cell. There is a endoplasmic reticulum, and then there is a third part which is called as nucleus. It has the genetic information which cell transfers from one generation to next generation. It has chromosomes and it has DNA. Inside the DNA there are genes which are present. So let us have a look at it, how exactly DNA is structured. Yeah. So as my friend suggested, what is DNA? DNA is a deoxyribonucleic acid. It is a double-stranded helical structure. It is a very stable structure, and it has two strands to it. Structurally, if you see what exactly it is made up of, so it has a pentose sugar, it has a nitrogen base, and it has a phosphate group. So nitrogen bases are made up of, they are basically four: adenine, thymine, guanine, and cytosine. And in the RNA, cytosine is replaced by uracil. RNA is a single-stranded structure, and it is called as ribonucleic acid. So these are the acids present inside the nucleus. So can we go next? Yeah. So now what is amino acid? So if you know the protein, which is a chain which can be called as a polymer, it is made up of amino acids. So there are 20 basic amino acids which are listed out here, and each amino acid has a specific code. So during the process of protein synthesis, the mRNA and tRNA have these codes which are complementary to each other. So there happens the complementary base pairing, and a specific protein is being formed by linking of amino acids. So we will have a look at how this process happens. So that process is called as a process of protein synthesis. So why protein is important? If you see any antigen when it goes inside the body, a human cell or any mammalian cell produces an immune response. So whatever immune response has been produced is a protein. So whatever antibodies which are produced by a human body are proteins. And if you see the current buzzword, current buzz disease is a cancer. This is an era of oncology. A lot of research is happening in the medicine on oncology. There are various biomarkers which are proteins. There are different kinds of cancers which are, are not understood by the topmost oncologists in the place. So for that, let us try to understand how protein synthesis happens. So this is a nucleus. In the nucleus, you can have a look. This is a DNA. DNA, as I said, it is a double helical structure. So it gets opened up. When DNA gyrase comes and attaches to it, it gets opened up. This double helical structure forms into two different strands of RNA. Then mRNA comes and attaches to it. Then different kinds of amino acids come and bind to the mRNA by complementary base pairing. And then there is a role to be played by mRNA, tRNA and rRNA. The protein molecule, when it gets synthesized, it's come out from the nucleus, then it goes into the cytoplasm. From cytoplasm, it goes out of the cell wall, which is made up of the phosphobilayer lipid molecules, and then it gets utilized for which it has been produced by a cell. Let me go next. So I would like to show you a small video of protein synthesis. So why I have taken this process is the question remains, like consciousness gives rise to all these processes inside the cell, or the processes inside the cell gives rise to consciousness. So this is the question here which is to be answered. I am not the authority, and by my study I couldn't answer this question. I just tried to put it forward in some of the slides, and let's try to have a look how the protein synthesis process takes place, because it is the most important, vital and fundamental process to be understood for the medicines.
Here is a cell, the basic unit of all living tissue. In most human cells, there is a structure called the nucleus. The nucleus contains the genome. In humans, the genome is split between 23 pairs of chromosomes. Each chromosome contains a long strand of DNA, tightly packaged around proteins called histones. Within the DNA are sections called genes. These genes contain the instructions for making proteins. When a gene is switched on, an enzyme called RNA polymerase attaches to the start of the gene. It moves along the DNA, making a strand of messenger RNA out of free bases in the nucleus. The DNA code determines the order in which the free bases are added to the messenger RNA. This process is called transcription. Before the messenger RNA can be used as a template for the production of proteins, it needs to be processed. This involves removing and adding sections of RNA. The messenger RNA then moves out of the nucleus into the cytoplasm. Protein factories in the cytoplasm, called ribosomes, bind to the messenger RNA. The ribosome reads the code in the messenger RNA to produce a chain made up of amino acids. There are 20 different types of amino acid. Transfer RNA molecules carry the amino acids to the ribosome. The messenger RNA is read 3 bases at a time. As each triplet is read, a transfer RNA delivers the corresponding amino acid. This is added to a growing chain of amino acids. Once the last amino acid has been added, the chain folds into a complex 3D shape to form the protein.
So this was the process of protein synthesis. Now I would like to hand it over to my friend Girish. Thank you.
So there are 2 unsolved mysteries in the explanation here. One is how is what is the origin for the digital information inside the cell? Because as we saw, the there is a sequence of A, T, T, G, C's in the DNA, and they correspond to the 20 amino acids which form the protein. So who or how this mapping of coded chemistry has come? Second thing is, we know that the sequence of DNA corresponds to protein synthesis, but for DNA to unwind and start making protein, you need enzymes which are proteins themselves. So there is a chicken and egg situation there. In nature, the information is passed on from the mother cell. So that's why famously we say life comes from life. Whereas when you are trying to attempt to give a chemical origin for life, we have to explain how the information came there in the first place. So these are the 2 unsolved enigmas, and we will discuss on the second one because it has got some implications. So what scientists tell is that DNA is a very stable and strong molecule. Perhaps it would not have come first. So then comes So whether the protein came first, but for protein you need information. So they say RNA would have come first. So if you remember, my friend put a slide, DNA had the double helix and RNA has the single helix. So there is a hypothesis that the RNA came first. So now, for the origin of life, the scientists give in their explanation, which I will be going to show quickly in the subsequent slides. They have taken from the time Big Bang happened. Big Bang happened somewhere around some 14 billion years ago. Earth was formed about some 5 billion years ago. So you have to give origin of life roughly from 5 billion years ago to the present day, the way we are. So the time zone is divided into 4. And in each time zone, scientists give some hypothesis what would have happened. And when they are giving an explanation, I want to draw your attention to the underlying assumptions which they make. There is a reason. Why? Because when we do not understand something or when we are not able to explain something, scientists are converting them into assumptions. That's being assumed. But actually science is not meant to make things which you do not understand, it's not meant to make them as assumptions. So that is where you have to pay your attention. So these are the 4 time zones. Next. So we will see the Miller time first. So what would have happened during Miller time? So what scientists tell 4 billion years ago. So remember that chemical evolution, that prebiotic electric discharge is happening. So they say during this time all the prebiotic chemicals were somehow in place. This is an assumption. The second thing is nitrogenous base was formed. This is also an assumption. The third, if you see in the DNA there is a ribose sugar, the right-handed sugar. So that was also this one. Now it's okay, some of them can be made assumption, but one particular nitrogenous base, the cytosine, is a very notoriously infamous because it is not found in any non-living things. Only from a living system that can be derived. So a lot of experiments are going on to do this, but the problem with those experiments is they are carefully stage managed, and a lot of human intervention is there to make the end product the way we want. But according to the Darwin's or neo-Darwin's theory, things should be random. We should not interfere in bringing the experiment to the desired result. Next. So the next is the RNA world. So if you remember, RNA is a long chain of polymer. You understand the word polymer? Polymer is, so various nucleotides bond together. Now roughly 100 nucleotides are required to form a simple protein. Now during somewhere around 4 billion years to 3.8 billion years ago, scientists tell that somehow the RNA was formed, roughly of 100 nucleotide long. Now if this has come about by a random process, we can actually do some calculations of probability. Now one of the nucleotide can be either A, U, G or C. So there are 4 possibilities. So each nucleotide can be one of these 4, so 1 over 4, and you have 100 nucleotide long. So 1 over 4 multiplied by 1 over 4, 100 times. So that comes to 1 by 4 raised to 100 is the probability of having roughly 100 nucleotide simple RNA molecule. And if this has to be a self-replicating RNA, because life means it has to self-replicate, then it has to replicate against another template. So that means the probability is doubled. So 4 raised to 100 becomes 10 raised to 60 if you convert to base 10. And now you have probability of 10 raised to 120 because you need 2 RNA molecules, and furthermore they both should be complementary pairing and both should be formed at the same time and in the same place, and they should combine and they should be held stable till they replicate. That means there should not be any cross reactions. Now this is, if we do the calculations, we see that the probability of this is 1 by 10 raised to 120. Either we should have been very lucky or this is being directed or guided. Next. So the next is coded chemistry. How the sequence of these digital alphabets correspond to 20 amino acids and form the protein, that is also a mystery. Next. And finally, somehow it has been assumed that 3.6 billion years ago there was a self-replicating molecule, after which Darwin's theory will act over that, and today we see the way we are. So of course I don't want to go into the limitations of Darwin's theory, you can read it yourself. So when we say a story of life, generally we give some moral behind the story, and the morals here are that we have got a lot of convenient assumptions, and the second thing is design is implied but it is being carefully denied. So in other words, when we give a random and a chemical origin of life, we kick design from the front door but we invite it through the back door. And the third is avoiding the obvious conclusion. Anyone who sees any digital system, the first thing that comes to mind is there is some conscious designer. But in biology, somehow, we want to avoid that take. We don't want that, some intelligent being bringing things into, existence. So this brings us that, something is wrong somewhere. And what is actually wrong, we'll see in the next slide. It has got to do with the foundational premise of modern science. The way we do modern science, the assumptions we have, the philosophy behind modern science is actually the trouble. The first is we have a commitment to give a materialistic explanation. That is, before we do any science, we already think that, I am not going to allow the last one, divine intervention, no supernatural cause. I will struggle no matter what, only to give a cause, materialistic explanation. And of course, they use the word naturalism, which, it's very attractive word, but if you just decipher there is actually very less content in that. The second is reductionist idea, that, the whole part can be divided into so many small and study them in isolation. This poses severe challenges in biology. The third is inductive reasoning. Inductive reasoning is you go from bottom to top. So science per se, people want, from simple things, it has to go this one. However, somehow there is another way of reasoning, deductive reasoning, that is in the spiritual traditions, that is avoided. The fourth thing is energy or matter is taken as eternal. People were talking about matter, energy, but actually, deeply speaking, have we really understood what is energy? Have we really understood what is force? Great scientists tell that, even we know how to use them, but we do not know what it is. And because we know how to use them, we falsely think that technology is confused with science. So actually, real science we are not doing, but we are progressing in technology. But we get a feel that, okay, I understand force. So what is really force? Is force material? Is energy eternal? We do not know. And then no divine intervention. We do not want that. Next. So this is one quote where a scientist has very explicitly told, that humans, so sometimes, you can try to get the truth from their mouth. And here is one famous scientist who has told that, we have a prior commitment to materialism. So in other words, he is honestly acknowledging that, we do science only in this way. Or we do this and we call it science, the other way. Next. So we need a sort of different kind of thinking if we want to understand and unlock the mystery of consciousness. That's what we call paradigm shift. Next. So paradigm shift has happened in the current body of science, for example, from the way we came from Newton physics to quantum physics. Even though in dealing with matter we have encountered paradigm shifts. So why not in the field of consciousness? So perhaps do we need a new thinking where we do not run into contradiction with faith? After all, we know science is saturated with faith. We do not want to openly acknowledge that. Next. So Vedic paradigm, luckily my previous speakers has spoken what I wanted to speak. So the Vedic model, he said that it's a viable model. So we welcome that. So Vedic paradigm, you can, paradigm shift in thinking is required. And to understand especially about the consciousness, I agree with my previous speaker, even though I don't know the professor sitting here who was asking that as far as spirit is concerned, all the the Vedic models are clear that it is different from matter. It cannot be explained in terms of matter. If you try to run, you are going to reach into a dead end. In fact, the first lesson in Bhagavad Gita is that we are not the matter. So in the whole 18th chapter, in the second chapter itself is God telling that. Then one can wonder what is he going to tell in the remaining chapters. So Vedic paradigm, next. So we have a choice, either we reach a dead end or we take a U-turn and consult those books and enhance our knowledge. And actually the reason why we discussed biochemistry is because some sort of intellectual humility should come, which is what we believe is the intention of this conference, that we do not really understand. Let us be very honest. We have reached some sort of, very fuzzy and things. Fundamentals are not clear. Let's retrace back and start afresh. We feel that's the aim of this consciousness, and each one of you sitting here by now should have got that feeling. So we have a choice here. Next. So we recommend a few books which you can read. One is Life Comes From Life by the person who is in the middle, Prabhupada, and Life and Spiritual Evolution by Dr. T.D. Singh. It's there outside. And much of our presentation is based on the beautiful article on the origin of life written by Dr. David Berlinski. It's available on net. Please go through that. and 4th on microbiology and biochemistry. So these are standard books. So if you go deep, sorry, there is no way we can try to explain consciousness through matter. So it's better we, we start changing the course of our thinking. So we end here. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Giri, says Srikanth. Sorry for interrupting you several times because we are running short of time. So we can take just a quick one questions. Anyone, any questions?
Do say life is a product of matter.
Do I say, is that what you're asking?
Life is a product of matter, do you say?
Do I say? No, we do not. And you asked this, another question to a previous speaker. One Indian view tells that life has come from matter, right? There is only one Indian view which says that, and that's the view of a person called Charvak. Okay, but otherwise, rest all Indian philosophers, whether it is Dvaita, Advaita, whatever it is, we have internal quarrels, but in matter of soul, we tell that it's not matter. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you for your nice talk. Now I request Professor P.K. Singh.
So now may I request Professor P.K. Singh to hand over a memento to the humble chair of this session. So thank you to all the speakers and the chair, and we have been cutting you short and disturbing you because the time was constrained, so we apologize if we have disturbed you, and the technical problems were also there, but that's, so thank you very much. Now, before moving to any other step, I want to tell you something, that we are going to have a cultural program today, and yes, with wow, right? That's a positive symbol. Okay, so see, there are two things our Dr. T.D. Singh used to encourage, Manormanthan as well as Manoranjan. Both are very important. Do you vouch for it? Yes. Please clap or do something to acknowledge. So therefore, there is going to be a cultural program now. These artists are accomplished artists, and we respect, this is the Indian culture, we respect scientists as well as we respect our artists, even if it means that our dinner gets delayed by 30-40 minutes, we should respect our artists, right? So therefore, without any further delay, so I want this stage management team to clean this place for the artist. This accomplished artist, her name is Jhinuk. She was put into training in creative dance when she was only 3 years old at Mamta Shankar Ballet Troupe by her parents with deep musical interests. After 11 years of practicing creative dance, Jhinuk realized her passion for the classical dance form Bharatnatyam. It has been a rather pleasant journey for Jhinuk, paving her way through the avenues of Bhava, Raga and Tala under the sublime shadow of the Maestro Gurus Srimati Thanakamani Kutti at Kolkata. A long meticulous spell of training followed, which honored her natural talent and innate sense of artistry to perfection. Jhinuk is a dancer in Bharatnatyam with potentiality and vitality. Her nymphatic and subtle movements in Bharatnatyam expose her possibilities of emerging as leading Bharatnatyam exponent in future. And she has performed in a number of places. I will just read 2 or 3 of them. Performed in Mahalaya Kolkata Doordarshan Kendra, performed in All India Dance Festival held at Lucknow in November 2001, and got an opportunity to perform in NIOH on International Handicap Day. And there are many, actually there are so many, and she is going to perform today also. So I request all of you to maintain silence and respect for these artists by expressing in the form of a big round of applause. Thank you very much. So,
welcome all of you in this evening. Today, our first presentation will be Natarajanjali. This is an offering to Lord Nataraja. The Sevika appeals to the Lord to remove all obstacles, to protect all living creatures, to bring to the people and to protect her, the Sevika. The Sevika expresses her gratitude to her Guru by first offering flowers to Lord Nataraja. Natarajanjali in Ragam Nattai and Talam Ekatala.
அழகில் ஜோதியில் அம்பலம்
Madhurashtakam, a choreography by Guru Srimati Thankamani Kutti in Bharatnatyam style of a few verses from Vallabhacharya's Madhurashtakam on Lord Krishna. In this piece, the poet is in all praise of Krishna, the king of Mathura. Krishna symbolizes the epitome of beauty. His lips, adharam, his stride, gamanam, his eyes, nayanam, his laughter, hasitam, his way of sleeping, eating, everything marks his stylized grandeur. He plays pranks with Sakhis as he hides their clothes on the Yamuna bank. His Rasa Leela as he goes Gopi Viharan at Brindavan, and his Gobardhan Dharan are a few of the deeds he does that are depicted in this piece. So, Madhurashtakam in Ragamalika, Talam, Adi.
मधुरं वदनं मधुरं नयनं मधुरं हसितं मधुरं हृदयं मधुरं गमनं मधुरं मधुराधिपदे अखिलं मधुरम् अधरं मधुरं वदनं मधुरं नयनं मधुरं हसितं मधुरं हृदयं मधुरं गमनं मधुरं मधुराधिपदे अखिलं मधुरम् अधरं मधुरं वदनं मधुरं नयनं मधुरं हसितं मधुरं हृदयं मधुरं गमनं मधुरं मधुराधिपदे अखिलं मधुरम् अधरं मधुरं वदनं मधुरं नयनं मधुरं हसितं मधुरं हृदयं मधुरं गमनं मधुरं मधुराधिपदे अखिलं मधुरम् अखिलं मधुरं अखिलं मधुरं गुञ्जा मधुर माला मधुर यमुना मधुर वीची मधुर सलिलं मधुर कमलं मधुर मधुराधिपदे अखिलं मधुर गुञ्जा मधुर माला मधुर यमुना मधुर वीची मधुर सलिलं मधुर कमलं मधुर मधुराधिपदे अखिलं मधुर गोप मधुर गाव्यो मधुर यष्टि मधुर सृष्टि मधुर गोप मधुर गाव्यो मधुर यष्टि मधुर सृष्टि मधुर दलितं मधुराधिपदे अखिलं मधुरं मधुराधिपदे अखिलं मधुरं मधुराधिपदे अखिलं मधुरं अखिलं मधुरं अखिलं मधुरं अखिलं
Next presentation will be a padam, Ardinay Kanna, on Krishna. O Krishna, as you dance in Vrindavanam blissfully, the gopis, attired beautifully, search for you and reach the river bank. The peacock feathers tucked in your hair sway, and your earrings tend to caress your cheeks while you dance. The precious gems of your beautiful head crown sparkles, and so does the garland moving playfully across your chest. Krishna's clothes resemble the hue of the golden glow of dusk. Ardinay Kanna in Ragam Mohana Kalyani, Talam Adi.
आडिनये தனிலாடினையே கண்ணா பிருந்தாவனம் தனிலாடினையே கண்ணா பிருந்தாவனம் தனிலானந்த ரசமய அற்புத நடனம் ஆடினையே கண்ணா பிருந்தாவனம் தனிலானந்த ரசமய அற்புத நடனம் ஆடினையே கண்ணா பிருந்தாவனம் தனிலானந்த ரசமய அற்புத நடனம் ஆடினையே கண்ணா ஈடில அழகிய கோபியர் முனை தேடி 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 நாடி வந்தார் நதிக்கரை நில ஒளியில் நாடி வந்தார் நதிக்கரை நில ஒளியில் ஆடினையே கண்ணா பிருந்தாவனம் தனிலானந்த ரசமய அற்புத நடனம் ஆடினையே கண்ணா மயில் பீலி சற்றே கொண்டை தன்னில் அசைய மயில் பீலி சற்றே கொண்டை தன்னில் அசைய மயில் பீலி சற்றே கொண்டை தன்னில் அசைய நவரத்னம கூட்டம் சிரம் தனில் ஒளிர மகர குண்டலங்கள் இரு செவி இலங்க மதிமுகம் தனிலே முறுவல் விளையாட மணங்கமழ் மாலைகள் மார்பில் அசைந்தாட மயங்கும் அந்தி வண்ண ஆடை இடையாட மயில் பீலி சற்றே கொண்டை தனில் அசைய நவரத்னம கூட்டம் சிரம் தனில் ஒளிர மகர குண்டலங்கள் இரு செவி இலங்க மதிமுகம் தனிலே உருவல் விளையாட மணங்கமழ் மாலைகள் மார்பில் அசைந்தாட மயங்கும் அந்தி வண்ண ஆடை இடையாட மதுர மோகன குழலிசை கூட்டு மதுர மோகன குழலிசை கூட்டு மதுர மோகன குழலிசை கூட்டு மங்கைய கண்கள் மையல் காட்டு மதுர மோகன குழலிசை கூட்டு மங்கைய கண்கள் மையல் காட்டு மதுர மோகன குழலிசை கூட்டு மங்கைய கண்கள் மையல் காட்டு மலகட சதங்கு ஜதிலயம் கூட்டு மலகட சதங்கு ஜதிலயம் கூட்டு மனமறிது அருள் சொரிந்து இணைந்து ஒன்றாயே கண்ணாது கவனம் தனிலானந்த ரசமய அற்புத நடனம் ஆடினையே கண்ணா ஆடினையே ஆடினையே
Our next presentation will be Krishna Nibegane Baro. Mother Yashoda, searching her son, child Krishna, who is busy playing and not very keen to listen. She has to bathe him and so tempts him in different ways and offers him sweets. After giving him a bath, she is aghast to find him again playing with mud and even putting the same into his mouth. She grabs him and asks him to spit it out. When Krishna opens his mouth, Yashoda is stunned to see the world therein. Krishna Nibegane Baro in Ragam Purandaradasa in Talam Tishra Chapu. of this evening is a Tillana. In Ragam Vrindavani, Talamadi. It is considered to be the most exciting piece of Nritta in the Bharatanatyam repertoire, with a number of alluringly sculpturous poses and variegated patterns of movements executed with grace and elegance. It exemplifies all the three elements of classical dance: speed, stability, and line. Tillana in Ragam Vrindavani Sarangi and Talam Adi.
हरितजं हरित नादृदीं तननदिल्लिलन तिल्लान नादृदीं दीं नादृदीं 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 तननदिल्लिलन तिल्लान नादृदीं दीं नादृदीं 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 तननदिल्लिलन तिल्लान नादृदीं दीं नादृदीं 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 नादृदीं
So wasn't that beautiful? It was or it was not? Lights, I want to see the expressions on everyone's faces. से यहाँ की ऑडिटोरियम का लाइट ऑन करना. अच्छा, सुंदर था ना? देखिए, साइंटिस्ट लोग अपना जीवन लगा देते हैं, अपना लाइफ, they spend a life in some research. These artists, they also, their performance is not just I want to say something in your praise. Please allow me. It won't take much time because I want to say. So, इनकी हृदय की शुद्धता, इनके सालों की साधना के लिए, please give them a big, huge round of applause because they deserve it. Artist, हमारे our Dr. T.T. Singh used to respect artists. So, Miss Jinuk wants to say something, right? Please. Big, huge round of applause once again.
Namaskar. I'm extremely happy and this is my pleasure that today I'm here with my girls. I've performed here and it's a, I don't know you have liked it or not, but I've enjoyed a lot. Pinky Guchait, Payal Nondi and myself Jinuk Mukherjee Sena. Good night, Shubhoratri, bhalo thakben. Thank you.
So may I request Dr. Mundra ji and Swamiji to come on stage and bless these artists as well as Swami Brajpati ji also to honor these artists with this humble gesture from our side, while the rest in the audience can continue the applause while the yeah. So our assistant has been very humbly playing the record. So one memento for her for appreciating and acknowledging her work. What is her name? Roshni Banerjee, please. Huge round of applause for her also. And then I will request Mrs. Haish to present this shawl to this. So, तो अभी मैं स्वामी जी से रिक्वेस्ट करूंगा कि 2 शब्द पहन के इनको प्रोत्साहित करें थोड़ा.
ओम सारी सृष्टि आनंद का उच्छलन है। नटराज जब नृत्य करते हैं, कृष्ण जब नृत्य करते हैं, उनको पता नहीं होता है कि उनके हाथ पैर शरीर किस प्रकार से संचालित होंगे। प्रारंभ में बहुत तपस्या करनी पड़ती है, बहुत परिश्रम करना पड़ता है। ज्यों ही आपने कला को कला के लिए अपनाया तो वह विराट, वह कृष्ण जो गैलेक्सीज के साथ में रास रचा रहा है, जो वृत्ति में नृत्य कर रहा है, वह उनकी रग रग के अंदर, इनकी रोम रोम के अंदर वह अपने आप को प्रकट करने लगता है। जो वाद्य यहाँ पर बजा रहे, जो गाना निकल रहा था, इनका अंतःकरण कैसे स्पंदित हो रहा था, वह आनंद तत्व अपने आप को प्रकट कर रहा था। जो बाहर है वह इनके अंदर प्रकट कर रहा था। मैं बहुत बहुत साधुवाद देता हूँ। कभी बाहर का जो प्रभाव है वो उनकी दिव्यता को मलिन ना करे। कोई अल्टीरियर मोटिव नहीं होना चाहिए। ईगोलेसनेस आते ही इनके अंदर सब आनंद उच्छलित होने लगेगा और जो भी इसको देखेगा वह भी आनंद में निमज्जित हो जाएगा। मेरी बहुत बहुत शुभकामनाएं। इनके गुरु ने जो इनको ऐसा ज्ञान दिया, ये खूब आगे बढ़ती चली जाए। बहुत बहुत आशीर्वाद है।
Madam, 2 words.
Well, I just want to express my joy for your wonderful performance. It was beautiful, and you brought me much joy, and everyone in the audience much joy, because art and music and dance are food for the soul. You're welcome.
हम तो आनंद में खो गए थे। हाँ, श्री वल्लभाचार्य जी का अधरम मधुरम बहुत विश्व प्रसिद्ध है, लेकिन उस मधुर भाव को जितना सुंदर मधुर नृत्य में आपने प्रस्तुत किया, उसके लिए बहुत बहुत बधाई। और हम उसी श्री कृष्ण से प्रार्थना करते हैं कि ज़िंदगी में जो मधुर भाव से आपने ये कार्यक्रम प्रस्तुत किया, वैसे ही ये मधुरता आपकी सारी ज़िंदगी में रहे। आप बहुत उन्नति करें।
बहुत सुंदर। 2 शब्द बोल दीजिए। खुला है, चालू है।
2 शब्द। Wonderful and ecstatic. The way you danced, the way you absorbed yourself in the characters, sometimes 2 characters at a time. So it was really fantastic. And the dancing, 2 girls, you were dancing in between that song. It is really very enthusiastic. And when you were playing Yashoda, it was so nice, and we felt like how nice it would have been if you were Yashoda. So thank you very much for transporting us to transcendental realm. Hare Krishna.
So thank you. So once again, a huge round of applause for all. Now, so all the organizing people, in fact all of you, can come here and we can have a group photograph as a last souvenir of this conference.